Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to the East Bay Green Home Tour. I want to start by introducing you to the team that's making this happen today. Rebecca Milliken from the City of Berkeley's Office of Energy and Sustainable Development is supporting the speakers today and helping to manage the chat and the Q&A. And Jessica Mitchell from the Ecology Center is graciously hosting this event on the Ecology Center's Zoom platform and helping with essential tech support. Members of the Berkeley Electrification Working Group, Tom Grayley, Chris Gilbert, and Igor Tregu, are helping out today to answer questions in the chat and dropping helpful links. And although he's not here today, I want to acknowledge my teenage son, Jude, who created and edited the home tour videos. Video takes up a lot of bandwidth, so depending on the speed of your internet connection and your Wi-Fi strength, your viewing experience may vary. Sponsorships and donations from attendees are what makes this tour possible. And I want to give a big thanks to the sponsors who are essential movers and shakers in the movement to get fossil fuels out of our homes. Thank you to East Bay Community Energy, Marin Clean Energy, and the Building Decarbonization Coalition, Stopwaste, and Bayren for advancing the transition to 100% clean renewable energy. And thank you for the essential services and products provided by Gottwatts, Span, Block Power, Electrify My Home, Eco Performance Builders, Harvest Thermal, Blue Rock Home, and Save-A-Lot Solar. And a special thanks to the League of Women Voters, Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville, for your strong climate advocacy. If you find this Green Home Tour useful or inspiring, please consider donating to support the event at eastbaygreenhome.com/donate. This is a labor of love produced on a shoestring budget, and your donations really matter a lot. Rebecca?
Thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca from the City of Berkeley's Office of Energy and Sustainable Development. And here's a snapshot of today's program. Each of the 6 home tour videos we will watch today will be followed by a short live Q&A with the homeowner or the tenant. And you can ask homeowners questions in the Q&A field. We'll also have a couple of short presentations today. Jessica Leader from the Building Decarbonization Coalition will tell us about the Switches On campaign, and I'm wearing my Switches On shirt with pride. It's a statewide campaign to switch homes to clean, green, all-electric energy. And Trevor Probert from Stopwaste will explain how we can draw down carbon dioxide and sequester it in the ground. If you tune in tomorrow, we'll tour 6 more homes and hear presentations that focus on green home strategies, especially for renters, and how you can electrify without upsizing your 100 amp electrical panel. And everyone who signed up today's program will also receive the Zoom login for tomorrow's program as well. And the links can be found, if you can't find it in your email, it's on the registration page of the eastbaygreenhome.com. And this event will be recorded. It will land on YouTube after about a week. And then if you miss any of the program, you can just log on to East Bay Green Home and we'll let you know when the videos have been posted. Thanks. Over to Jessica.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica. I'm from the Ecology Center. In case you're new to Zoom webinars, here are some features which will be really useful for you today. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see these icons: chat, raise hand, Q&A, and live transcript. Q&A is for questions only, specifically things that you want to ask to the homeowner or the presenter that we're highlighting. The chat is for commenting or engaging with other attendees. Members of the Electrification Working Group of the Berkeley Climate Action Coalition will be active in both the chat and the Q&A, answering questions and dropping useful links. If you have any questions that don't get answered, You can drop them into a Google form that we'll be putting in the chat for questions. After the green home tour, we'll take a look at the questions that you put in the Google form and email the answer in the next few weeks if we're able to find the answer. Every once in a while, we might ask you to show a raise of hands for a question. So like right now, raise your hand if you attended last Sunday's green home tour. You could click on the raise hand button.
Not last Sunday's, I mean last year's.
Excuse me, last year's green home tour. You can click on the raise hand button to raise your hand like Rebecca's doing right now, and then click it again to lower it. And then finally, the live transcript icon with the little CC will allow you to disable or enable the live transcript on your screen, which can be helpful if you're having trouble hearing.
Before we launch into the home videos, I want to take a minute to explain how we are thinking about the term green home. So climate change is bringing more heat, more drought, and more fire and smoke to the East Bay. So for this tour, we're focusing on the things that we can do to adapt to climate change without actively making it worse. So how can we adapt to these conditions while also helping to reverse the climate crisis? So in the light of the future and the now, a green home is a haven during heat waves and smoky season. It's powered by renewable energy. It conserves water that's increasingly precious, doesn't pollute the air, water, or land, sequesters carbon in the ground, incorporates recycling, reuse, and composting, uses non-toxic and sustainably harvested materials, supports human health and the surrounding ecosystem, and also is a beautiful, comfortable place to live that aligns with your environmental values. So my goal for this tour is to inspire you to start planning for the future. Anytime you improve your home or replace a dead appliance, engage with the future. Instead of operating on autopilot and doing what's been done before, stop and ask, will this make sense in 10 to 20 years? Do you want to be burning fossil fuels in 2040? Will this change make you healthier and more resilient? Throughout the Green Home Tour, you're going to see a wide variety of features from low tech to high tech and everything in between. If you want to learn more about any particular home feature that you see, you can find details on all the individual homes at eastbaygreenhometour.com/homes. A major through line that you're going to notice in this tour is electrification, which means getting fossil fuels out of your home and powering it using clean, renewable energy. So most of the homeowners you'll meet are switching out their gas appliances for high efficiency electric alternatives. And many power their homes with rooftop solar or about to get solar. The main 4 appliances in most of our homes that are running on gas are furnace, gas stoves, water heaters, and clothes dryers. But you're going to see homeowners on the tour who've also found electric alternatives for other things like grills, patio heaters, and pool heaters. In the East Bay, buildings account for over 1/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions, so any road to avoiding catastrophic climate change runs right through our homes. We already have the basic technologies we need to decarbonize all of our buildings, and these technologies are continuing to get cheaper and better at a fast pace.
Okay, so methane gas, as Amy mentioned, it's actually the 2nd largest source of greenhouse gases after transportation. And all the little vents that come out of your roof are essentially like tailpipes, and they're pumping out greenhouse gases and pollutants that create smog and other pollutants in our local air. And the methane gas is polluting at every stage, from the gas wells to the leaking pipes under our streets, to the pilot light in your stove or in your water heater. But on the other hand, our electricity is getting cleaner every year. Our power providers, which is East Bay Community Energy in Alameda County And Marin Clean Energy, which serves the counties of Contra Costa, Marin, Napa, and parts of Solano County, are buying more renewable energy every year, and they're investing in new local sources of clean power. If you want, right now, you can opt up to 100% renewable power. That would be all California wind and solar, nothing else. And in a moment, I'll drop those links into the chat. It's super easy, and for a house, it just costs a few bucks extra a month. You can also generate your own clean energy at home with rooftop solar. And when the sun is shining, many homes are actually generating surplus energy. And on the tour, you're going to see some homes with storage batteries. So these batteries capture the excess energy in their solar panels when they're producing it, and then they use that excess energy in the evening once the sun goes down. So besides being a dirty pollutant, methane gas is a global commodity, subject to price gouging and price shocks, like the war in Ukraine. And a huge advantage of solar is that your energy costs become very low and very stable.
So building electrification is not the only thing that you're going to see on this tour. You're going to see other climate change strategies that make sense in the warming, drying out, fire-prone place where we live. Gray water systems, rainwater catchment, metal roofs, straw bale construction, and more. Even if we stop burning fossil fuels today, we still have a thick blanket of gases trapping heat in the atmosphere. So we're also going to hear about strategies to draw down what's already up there. We call that carbon sequestration or a carbon sink. I also want to familiarize you with the term load shifting. So like Rebecca mentioned, California produces an abundance of solar energy. And so in the middle of the day, the electricity on the grid is clean, cheap, and mostly solar. When the sun goes down, people start coming home from work. Then the grid gets increasingly dirty and reliant on natural gas-fired power plants, and the energy becomes more expensive. Between the hours of 4 and 9 p.m. are called peak hours. And so during this tour, you're going to hear a lot from homeowners who are load shifting. And load shifting means that you're kind of gaming it so that you're using the most electricity during the hours when it's clean and cheap, and kind of minimizing your energy use during the hours when the electricity on the grid is dirtier and more expensive. So one of the things that I love most about living here in the East Bay is that we are an experimental and solution-oriented culture that leans into the future, full of early adopters and DIYers. What we do here really matters, so we need to take our role as the vanguard seriously. And I'm hoping that today you see something on this tour that you really want to do with your own home. If you are financially flush, there is nothing stopping you from making these changes, and it would be awesome if you could be the trendsetter on your block. If your finances are limited, there are programs to make remodels and retrofits accessible and affordable for you as well. There's an equity issue about who gets left behind in the clean energy transition, saddled with dirty air, hot homes, and high utility bills. East Bay cities, nonprofits, energy providers, and the state are all focusing on how to bring everyone along, and progress is definitely happening. Just to give you an example, this slide is a sampling of some of what's available. And if you tune into tomorrow's program, you can learn about Block Power, which is a terrific zero money down program for low and moderate income homeowners. So the landscape is changing really rapidly, and every year the technology is getting cheaper, rebates are getting bigger, and new programs for low income residents are coming online. So you will want to start planning now so you can take advantage of all this. All right, so now we're to the very first home, really excited. The very first video on the home tour is the home of Nate and Veronica, plus their kids and grandma. And they live in a really beautiful house in my neighborhood that I often admire when I'm walking around the neighborhood. So let's take a look.
I'm Nate. I bought this house in 2009. I live here with my family, my wife and 2 kids, and my mother-in-law. We've been doing a lot of work on this house since we bought it, and very much enjoying that and working towards electrifying everything and homesteading a bit. So this all started with a book my wife gave me about urban homesteading. From there, we got chickens and then bees and then rainwater catchment. Rainwater catchment led to solar on the roof. And once we were producing our own energy, we wanted to use that and started to electrify everything from there. One of the main things we did on this floor is replace the heating system from a gas furnace to a heat pump system. We reused the original return air and the registers. Then here in the dining room, we've taken out our brick chimney completely from top to bottom, and in the process of replacing the original fire burning fireplace with an electric insert. We converted our attic into a multi-purpose space for a family room, office. And when we installed the heat pump system, we put a mini split unit to heat this space separately. So I'm here in our basement, and this is where we keep a lot of the canned goods that we make, jam and harvested honey from our bees. Yeah, this is our pantry and laundry room. We have an electric dryer. Welcome to our backyard. Back here we have a number of fruit trees. We keep bees. We have a chicken coop, raised beds where we grow some vegetables. That's it. One of our upcoming projects is to reconnect this rainwater catchment tank, about 600 gallons we got from the city of Oakland with a program they had a number of years ago. So that'll go right here. We'll catch it to the connect it to the downspouts, and then have rainwater for later use. Right here, we've got the condenser, the outdoor unit for the heat pump that's part of the ADU. And here we have this structure here was original to the property from when it was built. When we purchased it, it was literally falling down. We rebuilt it completely with an ADU upstairs and a garage workshop downstairs. And we put a metal roof on it for rainwater catchment and to make cleaner water coming off of it. And that's it. We have a couple interesting features where we reused materials from the original structure. We have this door made of reclaimed flooring from upstairs, and then this hardware was the original hardware for the barn doors for the structure. Here we put in a full bath in a small amount of space by making a wet bath with an integrated shower, a wall-hung toilet with dual flush to save water. This is the interior of the ADU, which has the mini split heat pump system, which heats and cools the space. So this is the mechanical side, our side yard, sort of the mechanical side of our house. Right here we have the outdoor unit for the heat pump system serving all 3 stories. So as we try to electrify, we got rid of our gas water heater and moved over to all electric water heating. We have a small tank, electric tank for the washing machine. And then because we didn't have room for a tank anymore, we put an on-demand electric water heater. It's very energy hungry, but we have solar panels that help offset that electrical use. So here we have a heat recovery pipe. So when we're taking a shower, as the water comes down, the hot water comes down, it heats the incoming water the supply side, and right before it goes through to the water heater. And so then the water heater doesn't have to work as hard as it goes to the shower. All right, thanks so much for visiting our house. We very much enjoyed this process, and we're happy to share it with you.
So thank you, Nate. And now we're going to bring Nate on screen to answer some questions. And Rebecca's got the first question. Or no, yeah, that's right. You have the first question.
I got the first question. I'll tee it up here. Nate, that was fantastic. Welcome. So your home was the first where I've actually seen a heat recovery pipe. How did you find out about that, and what motivated you to go with that strategy?
So a friend of ours actually had one installed. They have one in their crawl space, so they do actually make horizontal ones if say you only have a one-story house and still want to recover the heat from that hot water. And the reason for doing it was we knew we wanted to use that hot water heater, which is energy intensive. So to sort of offset that, it's helpful to heat it up before it goes through it.
Great, thanks. I am scanning the questions in the Q&A. So this is just a reminder to folks that if you have a question specifically for Nate about his home, and we do have some questions in here. They're getting kind of technical, so I'm not sure. They want to know about how mini splits and heat pumps and how they're similar or different. And I'm wondering, Amy, if we should maybe do we want to wait on that till we get to switching on? Is on, or Nate, do you want to give a stab?
I think Nate can tackle that.
All right, Nate. So one of our attendees wants to know, can you kind of explain that, they're hearing the terminology mini split and heat pump. How are they similar? How are they different? And does a heat pump actually cool? Because it has the word heat in it. Maybe we should start with that. That's simpler. Let's start with,
that's a much easier one to say. Yes, a heat pump, that's cool. And that's the benefit of installing these. We're not used to having air conditioning and especially sort of the near East Bay, I guess, because we have such moderate climate, but we do get really hot days. And so it's nice to have the occasional ability to cool our homes. And so, yes, it does cool and heat.
Yeah, and I can just say I installed a heat pump system as well, and really enjoyed using air conditioning I live in El Cerrito, which used to be the cold city, but we turned that AC on. Great. So the second part of that question, do you feel like you can tackle a little bit of a high-level explanation on the difference between, or not the difference, but when people use the word mini split and heat pump?
I think so. So, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they're almost interchangeable. A mini split system is where you have your outdoor unit, and then it can go to multiple separate indoor units which are the mini splits. That are blowing the air that you want.
Yeah, I think that there are now some. I think that now that there are some all-in-one systems that just sit in a window that aren't split apart, that they're merged. But I think that Nate's correct.
Yeah, they're all using the heat pump. So whether that is to heat your water or to heat and cool your home. So we actually have heat pumps in our homes. A refrigerator is a heat pump, right? It's cool air is going in, hot air is going out. And the mini split or the ductless mini split, these are all different variations. And you're going to see more examples of these on the tour. And there's a great website we'll direct you to called The Switches On that can give you a high-level overview to start educating yourself about all this terminology. So great. There's lots of questions here now that are popping up. Okay, let's go back to this heat recovery pipe, because this is a new thing for folks. So they want to know, does this make sense, a heat recovery pipe, if you have what we call a heat pump water heater, or if you have you're heating your hot water in a tank? Or does it only make sense when you're doing like an InstaHot system?
That's a good question. I think it makes sense at any time if you have the space to install it. Otherwise your heat pump water heater or whatever water heater is just working harder to heat up the water that's coming in straight from the underground supply line, which is going to be fairly cold.
And I think for folks, we'll be talking about how you can connect with knowledgeable contractors, and every home is unique. And so really, having that conversation with your contractor will figure out what is going to be the most efficient for you and the most cost effective. I have a heat pump water heater. I don't have a heat recovery system. We don't need it in my home. So I think it depends on your situation. So folks are wondering.
Rebecca, I'm just checking the time and thinking that it's time for us to move on to the next home. But okay. Nate, if you can linger and answer questions in the chat, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and just want to let folks know, I'm going to drop in right now a link for a Google form. So if your question did not get answered live by Nate, you can type it in there, and Amy is going to distribute these questions around to our local community of experts and get responses to you. So once again, if you didn't get your question answered, I'm seeing a lot in the Q&A, type it into this Google form that I'm about to drop in the chat.
Okay, so we're gonna now watch a quick sponsor message and then go on to the next home tour. Okay, so now we're going to check in on the house of Jane Melia. And I met Jane last year while filming at a home in the East Bay Hills for the first Green Home Tour. Jane is CEO and founder of Harvest Thermal, a company that's figured out how to use a single heat pump for both water heating and air heating.
Hello, I'm Jane Melia, and it's a real pleasure to meet with you today. So I am here at my home in Kensington, which is a small community north of Berkeley up in the hills. And I've been living here for 6 years with my husband, and from time to time, some of our adult children, which have lived here for several months at a time before carrying on with their lives, which we've really enjoyed. We also have an ADU in the house, so we have some tenants as well. We enjoy spending time with them too. So one of the reasons I really love this home is the community and how walkable it is, but also I like being in the hills and being close to nature. I am a gardener by nature, so I spend as much time as I can out here in the yard and trying to make things look nice and look after my flowers. Our house has been gas-free since 2018. And so although we lived here starting in 2016, and little by little over the years, we've made improvements, including getting rid of our gas furnace and other things. And very pleased to be gas-free, and also have a lot of features that I'm really excited to show you. One other thing is I'm also the co-founder and CEO of a company called Harvest Thermal, which is all about how to electrify our homes. And I'll show you a little bit of that on our tour today. So I've been interested in clean energy for as long as I can remember. As a kid growing up, my dad and my mom, they were super interested in what could we do with solar, and how do we make sure our home's more efficient. Fast forward to today, what's really exciting is that the technology exists. We know how to solve all these problems. It's not 20 years ago we were saying, well, we have the technology to solve climate change. We know how to do it. We can slash emissions by 90% from our homes. We can slash emissions from our cars. And so it's a question of let's come up with the right products. Let's make sure that people have access to them, and let's just do this because it's very much within our grasp. Come this way. I'd like to show you my all-electric kitchen. So here's our induction stove, which I absolutely love cooking with. And as you can see, making my tea, I'm very British in that way. And it works just perfectly. Heats water super quickly and cooks really, really good food. So we're really happy not to have gas in our kitchen anymore. And it means that the air in our house is so much cleaner and healthier, which is of course a relief for everybody. So I may have mentioned earlier that I love gardening, and part of that is trying to have a sustainable garden. So we compost our food waste, just throw it in this little bucket here on the shelf, and then take it down to our composter outside, which I'll show you later on. And that really allows me to have really good compost in the garden and reduce waste. Okay, so here we are in my garage, and you can see here is one of our electric vehicles. It's a really old Nissan Leaf, and we have another EV, a Bolt, which means that as well as having an all-electric house, we have all-electric driving, and they're powered by our solar panels, which is an additional benefit from our perspective. Now, about the solar panels, we have some really old solar panels, about 3.8 kilowatts. They've been on the roof of this house for nearly 18 years, so they're one of the earlier generations. They're still functioning just great, so they're powering these cars. One thing I really like about our solar system is that we replaced the inverter just a couple of years ago, and the inverter that we have allows us to use the solar electricity if there's a grid outage. So if there's a grid outage, we just flick this switch, it disconnects from the grid, and we can then plug in and use the clean solar power. That means if there's a power outage, we can use our router, we can use our lighting, we can plug in our phones, all those low power things that are really helpful that keep life moving forward. Okay, and now for another feature of the all-electric house. So this is our dryer. It's a heat pump electric dryer, and it uses 900 watts, which is about the same amount as a hairdryer to dry all our clothes. It works really well. Before getting it, I heard that it might take a really long time. It might not dry as well. But on average, this dries our clothes in about 60 minutes, which is not bad. So really like it, and again, like not having to use gas or other dirtier fuels. So our house is all electric. That means that we don't have any gas for heating or hot water. And so I'll be showing you our all electric heating and hot water system in a minute. But before I go there, from a comfort perspective, from a what it means for the inside of the house perspective, it hasn't changed. Our heating is delivered through these registered in the ceiling, just as it would, or just as it was when it used to be all gas. So here's our heat pump. It's a Sanko 2 heat pump water heater. Heat pumps are wonderful devices. They move energy rather than generating it, and therefore many times more efficient than even the best cast furnace or any electric resistance heating. This heat pump, for example, has a coefficient of performance of 5.25, which means that at optimum times, it's moving 5.25 times more heat into the home than it's using in terms of electricity, which is really wonderful. It's also extremely quiet. It's 37 decibels. In fact, it's just under my daughter's bedroom and we never hear it. You have to touch it to know if it's on. And there are no refrigerant lines going to the home. The refrigerant is all encased within it, and between the home and the heat pump, it's only water, which I really like, not having refrigerant running through my house. Another thing is that this is a Sanko 2, so it's typically a heat pump water heater, but we've been able to use it not just for heating our water, but actually heating our whole house using the Harvest system that I'm going to be able to show you in a few minutes. Okay, so you remember the compost bin I showed you in the kitchen a bit earlier. Here's a bit more about my compost system. So you see 3 bins. The one in the middle here, that's the finished compost that I can use for my yard. The one here that's now on the left, that's one which is settling. So it's full of material that is turning into compost, and then we water it and turn it periodically. And then the big one on the right is the one that we're right now using to put in our food waste, but also I put it in a lot of yard waste, be it weeds that I've removed or dry waste from, say, the bamboo. And so we have these 3 bins constantly rotating and giving me compost for all my needs for my garden. So I'm a keen gardener, but I'm also very aware that we've got to take care of water and preserve it. So we put in a grey watering system, and that gives us all the water from our washer, as well as water from all 3 showers goes through a grey watering system, and it just comes directly to all these trees along the perimeter of my home, giving us nice shade and really providing all the water that these trees and plants need just from our showers and our washing machine. So we just saw our heat pump water heater outside, which operates when electricity is nice and clean and cheap in the middle of the day and generates hot water at high temperatures. That's stored in this tank and is used later on for our hot water for dishwasher, showers, and so on. But also it's used to heat our home and keep it nice and warm. You can see that the tank is nicely wrapped with a nice layer of insulation. Why waste heat when you don't have to? And all the pipes going to and from the pipe are also insulated. So this water is stored at high temperature and it stays nice and hot. It's not widely known that most of the energy we use in our homes is actually for heating and hot water. So we can put solar panels on our roofs, which is great and it's important to do, but that's not solving the problem of the gas that we're burning for our heating and hot water. And while electricity is continuously getting cleaner, gas is not. So that's the biggest problem to solve. In fact, a lot of us are thinking about, how do we get gas out of buildings? When we talk about gas in buildings, 90% of that is heating and hot water. It's not your stove, it's not your chimney, it's your heating and hot water. So that was a problem that Harvest we really tried to solve. So we saw the heat pump outside, we've seen the tank here where we're storing it up. And this is the Harvest pod, which is really the brains of our system. And this really controls the operation of the heat pump to make sure it only runs when electricity is cleanest and cheapest. It also manages this tank as though it were a battery, right? You can think of this as a Tesla Powerwall storing hot water, and it makes sure it delivers the heating and hot water to the home whenever you need it. Using this system, what's nice is it's 100% clean, it's extremely efficient, and it's reduced our emissions by 90% compared to gas, by about 50% compared to had we used a regular heat pump system. And it's also cut our bills by 40%. Our energy bills have gone down by 40% using this system because it's just so efficient. Okay, so this box here is our heat recovery ventilator. So it's kind of an ugly box, but I really love it. And the reason I love it is it allows us to have the highest quality air because it's always ventilating the house. And it does so without losing any heat because it's got heat recovery ventilation. Heat recovery is part of the process. So a really nice addition to any home to keep the quality of your air clean without losing energy, without losing heat. So we're trying to get gas out of our homes for our heating hot water. So we're putting in heat pumps, and that's really important. But one thing that I think we need to be aware of is that electricity is not always clean. This is the electricity generated in California. You can see the emissions. They're much higher in the morning and the evening than they are in the middle of the day. And that's because there's a lot of solar on the grid in California. Even if you don't have solar on the roof, when you plug in the middle of the day, that's mostly solar electricity. Now, when we want to heat our homes using a heat pump, which are fantastic things, you're going to typically reuse them in the morning and in the evening. That's when you need to heat your home. So it doesn't really coincide with this nice dip in the middle of the day, which we call the duck curve. So what you'd really like is for your heat pump to operate like an inverse duck, right? The upside down duck. And that's really what the Harvest thermal system does. The Harvest pod that we saw downstairs operates the heat pump at the middle of the day, always when electricity is cleanest and cheapest, but it then stores it up as hot water and then delivers the heating to your home whenever you need it. So it's always capturing this lowest carbon, lowest cost electricity in the middle of the day. Now, what that does is Of course, it's great to get rid of gas, but we're also reducing emissions by 92%. This is what we measured in our home last year compared to gas, and by 41% compared to had we used a typical heat pump. And it's also saving our bills, 42% compared to gas, minus 23% compared to heat pumps. So it's good for our home. It's nice and clean. It's good for our wallet, but it's also really good for the planet. And that's what we're super excited about. So thank you for visiting my home. I hope you found it interesting, and I look forward to your questions. So over the past few years, we've done a lot of experimenting, as you can see, from our stove to our dryer to our solar, and of course our heating and hot water. And over the past 4 years, we've been deploying a number of beta versions and pilots in a lot of homes around here. But now we're actually rolling out commercially with dozens of homes going in the East Bay, the South Bay, and the North Bay. Looking forward to answering any questions and sharing some of the learnings that we've had through this journey.
Great. Should I jump in, Amy?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, we've got lots of questions for you, Jane. So one thing that's just so cool about your harvest thermal system is that it's time to draw power in the middle of the day when we have an abundant amount, of solar energy. So it's clean, it's cheap. And I think a lot of people kind of assume that their water heater has to be drawing energy all the time, right? Because you want to turn on your hot water and make sure it's there. So can you just explain a little more of how that works, that you don't have to have it running all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. That is such an important question, Rebecca. So typically we need heating in the morning, we need heating in the evening, we need heating at night. And that's when heat pumps typically operate. They deliver heat instantaneously. And that is, heat pumps are absolutely phenomenal things. They're the right way to go. We need to transition from gas, but they don't tend to capture the cleanest electricity. Hot water does allow you to store a little bit, but you do want to make sure you have enough hot water. And often they don't actually, they're not charging necessarily at the right times of the day. And so that ability to load shift that I know was talked about at the beginning of this session is really crucial. I think about heat pumps as, well, fantastic devices because they're so efficient, they're so low emissions. But I think we're very much in that first generation of systems where we're deploying heat pumps that are operating instantaneously. The next generation is how can we figure out how to really capture those heat pumps and operate them when there's a lot of solar energy, store that up and use that later on. And that's taking the best of the heat pump, but also the best of storage technology and the best of control systems that allow us to really reduce emissions. And that's getting those emissions down by 90% compared to gas, which is really important. It's where we need to go, and doing it without sacrificing comfort. You still get your home heated, you get your hot water whenever you need it.
Thanks, Jane. A few more technical questions about your home.
Okay.
One of our attendees wants to know if you can explain how there is no refrigerant pipes going through the house, because you mentioned that they were encased in the system.
Absolutely. So it's a heat pump water heater, and the refrigerant that is used in this heat pump water heater is actually CO2, which is great because it's got a very low global warming potential. It's the lowest there is. A global warming potential of 1 as opposed to about 2,000 for most heat pump systems. But most importantly, that heat pump, that refrigerant resides solely in the tank, exchanges that heat to water within the heat pump, and then that water flows into the home. So the pipes going between the heat pump and the home only contain water. All the refrigerant is contained in that heat pump. So that is nice from an installation perspective. It means also no refrigerant. It also means it's easier to install from that perspective.
Great. I'm going to try to combine two questions here about your system. So they want to confirm that you're using the heat pump to both heat the home and the water is part A.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's confirmed. And does the harvest system, so it heats the home, heats the water, same heat pump, does it also provide cooling for the home is the question?
So our system is compatible with cooling. So we've deployed a couple of homes where we have cooling systems together. But right now that cooling system doesn't do the load shifting. So what we've really focused on is how do we transition homes from gas, add electricity, but add those electric systems without harming the grid. So that's really prime objective, but we absolutely know that cooling is very important for health and comfort of many people, and also to allow people to transition from homes. So our systems are cooling compatible, and over time, we're going to enable that load shifting as well. But right now, we can't yet do that.
Great. And Amy, do you have time for another question?
Yeah, one more.
Okay. So someone noticed attentively that you have different types of solar panels on their roof, and some are older. And so they're wondering just, how did you manage to combine these different systems and to choose for your newer ones? And
well, actually, I have a secret there. When you saw my roof, you saw the solar panels on one side, and those really old things you saw are actually really old skylights. So that we need to replace one of these days. Probably next year we're going to replace them, but all the solar panels are the same. So
I had that same question when we were flying the drone over Jane's house. We were like, what are those? Are those really old panels?
No, actually from the inside, they're fine. The light permeates beautifully. It's just from the outside that look really ugly.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that. And
I wanted to say something really quickly, just in case it gets lost, which is the refrigerants and heat pumps are in a closed system. And the only time that they have, the global warming gases get out is if there's a problem or a leak. And so I just wanted people to know that, as a matter of course, that heat pumps aren't releasing refrigerants into the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, heat pumps are just phenomenal, and the refrigerant should never be leaked. And that's a very, very good point. But there are refrigerants which have, if there's a leak, which are better than others. But absolutely, go to a heat pump. It's much better than the gas alternative, no question. Okay,
well, thank you, Jane. We're going to see another quick sponsor ad, and then we're going to go to our first presentation with the switches on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jessica, do you want to go ahead and introduce Jessica?
Yeah, it is my pleasure to introduce our first presenter, Jessica Leader from the Building Decarbonization Coalition. Jessica is going to tell you about a terrific resource that is part of a statewide campaign called The Switch is On. Be sure to type any question that you have into the Q&A field, and Jessica will pop down there to answer after her presentation.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Amy, for having me. And good afternoon to everybody who's here. I am just going to share my screen really quickly. I am always just so inspired to be on any call or any presentation where like everybody, is just so here. And especially I do a lot of these in like the evenings after work, but to see everybody here on a Saturday morning when I'm assuming, I hope it's like this in the East Bay, but I'm in Marin right now and it's gorgeous weather. So having everybody at their computers to learn about electrification really shows the dedication of this community and just really excites me. So thank you everyone for being here. As mentioned, my name is Jess Leader. I'm the Director of Strategic Outreach at the BDC, and a big part of my job is to talk about electrification and really all of these types of things that are very like wonky and scientific and difficult to understand, but at the end of the day is something that everyday people not only can do, but should do, and can change your life for the better in so many different ways. And I sort of just want to tell you about it. So I run a program called The Switch Is On, which some of you may have heard about before, which is an opportunity which is a consumer campaign that is supported by the state of California, a lot of private partners across the state to help people electrify their homes. And I want to take a second to talk about why it's so important to electrify your home, because sometimes it's not necessarily intuitive to everybody, right? It's like, I know I need to use clean energy. I know solar is good, but why is getting more things connected to electricity important? And the main factor about this is that it's not just connecting it to electricity, it's moving it away from natural gas or moving it away from propane. And as our grid is becoming cleaner and cleaner, and as more renewables are flowing onto the grid, and we have more batteries so that we can utilize clean power at different times of day, we want to use that clean power. And everything in your house that's connected to gas is a single source fossil fuel, right? So no matter how clean the grid's getting, we're not being able to utilize those benefits for anything that's connected to natural gas. There are some things in your home you might not even realize are connected to natural gas. For instance, the main things that we're focusing on are your HVAC system, your water heater, your dryer. I didn't know I had a gas powered dryer for a very long time. And of course your stove, which is in and of itself in its own category. But if we really take a second and step back and think about it, like there's a reason we no longer use gas lamps at our homes. There is a reason why we're talking so much about how everybody should be switching from gas powered vehicles, and obviously different kind of gas, but gas powered vehicles to electric vehicles. And that's because electricity is our future in so many ways. Not only does it allow us to engage in this cleaner energy portfolio, but it also allows us to have more control over our grid as a whole. We get to decide what is being used and when, and what type of power we're using. And more than anything, it is where the heart of technology is existing right now. It's where things are becoming way more efficient, way cleaner, way more responsive, and way smarter. And that is really what electrification is. It's this segue into a better, cleaner, more efficient energy system. So I talk about the words electrification and decarbonization a lot, kind of in tandem. That's because my organization is called the Building Decarbonization Coalition. And often the words are used interchangeably because as we electrify, we are decarbonizing our energy system. So just wanted to kind of put that out there in case there are any questions about it. And now I'm going to take a second. I mentioned a few different technologies that are really, that we're really focusing on through the Switch Is On program before I get into what the program is itself. So the first is a heat pump, and I'm sure this has been covered in some of the home tours, but a heat pump technology can be used for both heating and cooling systems, as well as water heating systems, which we'll get into. It sounds and kind of feels like a new technology, but it's not. It's very similar to how our refrigerators work, right? It's just pulling air from the outside and bringing it inside when we want to use it. So, during hot days, it pulls warm air out of your home and funnels in cool air. And during cold days, it does the opposite. It vents in warm air from the outdoor and makes the cool air move into the areas that you don't want it. And so the heat pump water heater obviously works similarly. It pulls in hot air from the outdoors to heat your water. And this is a really efficient system, especially just going back really quickly to the heat pump. Really efficient because oftentimes people have different systems for their heater and their air conditioning. And this really allows you to just have one system that replaces both of them in the most efficient way possible. There's a lot of different types of heat pumps. There's a lot of different types of technologies, and I don't want to break down into that right now just because I want to give you guys as much baseline information as you need, but there's a lot of different types of structure of appliances that can fit your specific home needs. So we can always get into that later. I'm skipping over what an electric dryer is, because it's very similar to your regular gas powered dryer, except it's electric, which is really nice. But then this is kind of, in my mind, the crown jewel of electrification, which is induction stoves and induction technology. You know, the one appliance in your home you probably interact with on a much more regular basis than your heat pumps. And it is just such an incredibly high performing, precise, accurate, valuable technology that too many people don't understand, I think, because they associate induction stoves with just general electric coil and not necessarily always recognizing or hearing some mythology about how it works. But the truth is, how it really works is it uses magnets, which is essentially magic, to ensure that the heat particles are just hitting the places they need to. So it's much safer for people who have children. It heats up really, really quickly, especially compared to gas. It doesn't emit any indoor pollutants. I don't know if anybody has seen some of the recent studies that talk about how much gas stoves really do impact indoor health, but it really, really does. And it's if you're a foodie or a chef, you know, it's an incredible experience. So as I mentioned, this is all the types of technology and the types of things we're focusing on as part of the Switches On campaign. And the Switches On campaign is an opportunity for California to basically support to support people who are interested in moving away from the gas system in their homes towards electrification. And it's funded through a combination of something called the Tech Initiative, which is a California Public Utilities Commission program that essentially uses cap and trade funds from the gas industry to funnel back into electrification, which is just a beautiful model in my mind. And then also individual partners. So Bayren, for instance, is one of our partners, East Bay Community Energy, basically all different types of utilities and CCAs and municipalities that are really just trying to support electrification, have incentives and rebates for electrification across the board. This is a multi-year program that really hasn't been implemented across the country or really anywhere else similarly to this. And that's because it's kind of a holistic opportunity that supports you on every step of your journey. So it is going to provide resources to help educate about electrification and what it is. The goal is to kind of inspire you so that you can realize that you can be a part of this program and then really support you in all the things that can make it happen for you in your home. So our team is me, the senior project manager, Rebecca Rothman, and then Eric Fleck, who is the campaign coordinator. And Eric runs a really amazing program that I'm going to talk about called our Ambassador Program. And I think and hope a number of people on this call are Switches On ambassadors. So shout out to all of you. But it's really just an opportunity to be a part of this movement and be a part of the electrification movement, no matter where you are in your journey, even if you've already started it before Switches On launched, even if you are just at the beginning of it, but it's really, really cool and exciting. So, oh no, I don't know what just happened to my screen. My apologies. Let me get back here really quickly. Okay. There we go. So I think that before I get into the details of the campaign, one of the things that's really important to me personally to convey to people is how electrification connects to so many other parts of a green home or a clean home. And I think just from the snippets that I've caught of the other home tours, people are really recognizing all the different components that go into this, which is really great and really important. So electrification is not a separate thing from getting solar or batteries or EVs, but it's all part of one ecosystem, right? When we're thinking, how can we build a home that is going to be there for generations to come, that's going to contribute positively to the future for us and our children, and also just be a comfortable, smart, forward-thinking place to live. And so electrification is a huge part of that, but it's also there with, you know, smart thermostats, smart panels like SPAN. Love that you had the SPAN integration right before this. Solar panels, home batteries, an EV in the you know, in the driveway, and just really recognizing that we the home should be a little bit of a living, breathing thing, not in the scary AI way, but in the way that it can be an optimal amount of efficiency and responsiveness to the energy system as our energy needs change. So how this kind of ties into our overall campaign. As I mentioned, it's to really educate people, to inspire them, and to help them in the process of switching, to kind of take away the intimidation and the scariness that can come with doing, you know, really big home projects. For those of you who've ever renovated any part of a home, you probably know that it's not exactly like the easiest, most fun thing to do with your partner or yourself or whatever it may be. And especially when it's something that requires time and commitment and retrofitting. So you have to change different aspects of the home and things can pop up. It can be really complicated and it can be really stressful and it can feel not worth it. And I'm here to tell you that it is worth it for so many reasons, but a big one is that you have an entire support system behind you, and that is the Switches On campaign. And if you go to the switcheson.org, you'll come up to this website, which you can click through to be of what we do is ensure that people who are wanting to change their home and the contractors who are there to support them are on the same page, are singing from the same hymn sheet, are getting similar resources and messaging, and are really in this together, because the contractors are the experts. They're the ones who you are relying on to help make your home what you need it to be. And so that's really important to us. You can go to the website and there are a number of different ways you can find information. The first is you can just do a contractor lookup, which are, as I mentioned before, the contractors who go in through this and who are tech vetted and tech certified can be found in our system, as well as we utilize a marketplace called Efficiency First or Electrum. We use a few different ones, which I'm going to get into, but they also directly vet and ensure that these contractors are the ones that are going to support you in your electrification journey and can be trusted to help get you exactly what you're looking for in your home. Another way of utilizing the tools on our website is something called the expert guidance section, which is really cool. It's a home electrification assistant. And right now it's specifically for solar panels and for water heaters, because as I mentioned, we're really looking at the holistic home of all electric home of the future. And it's going to be expanding to other technologies, but you can actually speak to a real life person, as you can see the phone number over here, who can walk you through what you're looking for, can understand what aspects of your home could potentially become obstacles in the future to getting any of these things, and help you work with that and find a solution for your specific home. So, you know, ideally, in my mind, there's going to be somebody who's able to be your guide and sensei throughout this entire experience, and really say, okay, you want a zero carbon home? Here's exactly the way we can make it happen. And these are just a few steps that are going towards it. One of the other aspects of our website that I just think is really exciting is our rebate and incentive finder. So you can put in your zip code and it will show you exactly the rebates and incentives that are available to you based on the different types of appliances you're looking to electrify. We're in the process of updating that rebate and incentive finder, so it's going to become even more precise, get more information, and hopefully show you more incentives that are relevant to you and your lifestyle. And finally, I mentioned the ambassador program earlier, but I just want to give it a really quick shout out again, because as I mentioned, the Switches On program isn't just saying, hey, electrify your home, and then once you put in a heat pump, you're done. What it really is building out this movement. You know, I know I have been, every time I hear something about climate change in the news, my heart sinks and I feel like helpless. And I think that one of the coolest things about electrification is that it really is based on individuals, and it really makes a difference for every single person that does it. And it's not just about swapping out one appliance, but becoming part of this movement. And that's what the ambassador program is. It's for people who have already started electrifying their homes and want to tell more people about it and want to support their communities to help everybody electrify. And I was really hoping that we'd have like 7 to 10 ambassadors when we launched at the end of December last year. We had more than 100 at that time. I think we're closer to 200 now. People have been attending these onboarding sessions, and ambassadors can get as involved in the program as they want to. It's really just about, posting and sharing on social media, writing blog posts if you want to, attending events. Some people are offering home tours like Amy is doing here, speaking with media. Is just really engaging with their communities to be the voice of electrification. And seeing how invested people have been in this has been really meaningful to me. People have offered so many interesting creative ideas that I never even thought about for our ambassadors to do. There have been people who have been tabling. There have been people who've been going to bake sales. We have some also really cool swag. I can't believe I'm not wearing my switches on shirt right now, but I really should. We have yard signs, we have magnets, we got so many different things that you need to kind of really recognize that you are a part of this community. And we're not only looking at ambassador categories, but neighborhood ambassadors, but we're looking to expand this. So we have organization ambassadors, people who can't necessarily fund the campaign, but really support what we do. Influencer ambassadors, people who might have like a really large following on social media accounts that want to talk about this. Contractors who have been really vocal in the electrification movement and can support their community of contractors to make this happen. And so there are just these amazing representatives across the board that we want to empower and give a voice to. So these are just kind of examples. So the Switch is On campaign, again, we have resources on the website, including educational resources. We have great social media accounts. We have this ambassador program. We have some really cool creative and videos and paid media portion of it. And we are here to support you and to support you in your journey. So if you take away anything from what I'm giving you today, it's that now is a really great time for home electrification. There are some really great incentives. There is this great program that wants to support you in your process. And that is going from A to Z, educating you on what it means, helping see how it fits into your life, and then actually supporting you on the process to make it happen. We are an unprecedented program, so we're continuing to iterate and improve as we move forward, and you can be a part of our movement. So if you want to become an ambassador, I'll drop the ambassador form link into the chat. You can also contact us at contact@switcheson.org, follow us on our social media channels. And yeah, I am here to answer any questions, and I hope you guys all consider electrifying your homes and being a part of the campaign. So thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. I got my Switches On t-shirt in the mail last week, and I'm really excited to wear it. And I just want to say again that Switches On is a great place to start your journey. It's a beautifully designed website that can really hold your hand. So Jessica's going to drop down into the Q&A to answer any questions, and we're going to go on to see our next home, which is the home of Rich Chen in North Oakland. And this segment is sponsored by East Bay Community Energy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rich Chen, and I've lived in this home for just over 10 years. I moved to this part of North Oakland from San Francisco with my wife and 2 daughters when my oldest daughter was about to enter kindergarten. And we were really drawn to this area for proximity to Peralta Elementary School, where both my girls have attended school over the last 11 years. And also, we love the neighborhood for its walkability, close to shopping, and to transit. So I'd like to share some of the things that we've been doing to our home over this time to get off of fossil fuels and to save energy and reduce emissions. When we bought this home, which was built in 1912, it had very old heating and water heating systems. The old furnace, which was probably well over 40 years old, basically shook the house when it came on, blowing air and kicking up dust every which way.
I suffer from very bad allergies to pollen and dust, so all of this tended to exacerbate. Then during the Northern California wildfires of 2018, like many others, we started to get very concerned with related air quality issues. Then that winter, I had had enough and decided to do something about it. It was important for me to try and walk the talk, and it's been very informative to learn firsthand about what's really involved in trying to electrify an old home. What I found is that the experience of using electricity instead of gas has brought many quality of life benefits and peace of mind in terms of reducing our impact on climate and protecting the health of me and my family. So we're starting outside by the electrical panel. I know this is not the most exciting or sexy or attractive part of a home tour, but it's really important as we think about getting off of natural gas in our homes and electrifying systems. I'll show you the projects that we did later, but our first project that we did was a heat pump for space conditioning back in 2018. And one of the first things that we had to address was, do we have enough electrical capacity? So working with a contractor, we upgraded our old panel, which was 100 amp service to 200 amp service. Subsequently, when we did our kitchen, which I'll also show later, we had to run some wiring from this main panel to a sub panel just for the kitchen, all the new appliances that we got in. But nice to know that we have adequate service, everything's up to code, everything is safe. We took care of some knob and tube wiring in the attic during the same project, and just kind of investing in that basic core infrastructure of the home feels really good. So here's the backyard, and for the heat pump space conditioning, we had to figure out where to put the outdoor condenser unit. So this seemed like an optimal place for it. And then you can see here, the refrigerant lines are run. The contractor did this nice sheet metal covering for it to protect it and kind of hide that stuff. That runs all the way to the front of the house, under the front level, the top level, to the crawl space. And we can go look at that stuff now. So now I'm going to show you some of the equipment for both of our heat pump systems that are in the crawl space. Okay, so this is the air handler unit for the space conditioning. The refrigerant lines you can see from the outside are running over here to a heat exchanger, which is then got, multi-speed fan that it's not blowing air at one speed all over the house. It's very gentle distribution. We redid the ducts down here that were accessible, made them all tight, insulated everything. And we have a MERV 13 filter here that we replace twice a year. And it really cuts down on the dust and other particulates that are brought in from the outside of the house, which really has helped my allergies a lot. In 2020, our old existing gas water heater literally died on us. And we had to go into emergency replacement mode and kind of waited it out a little bit so that I could get this heat pump water heater installed. It's a 50-gallon Ream model that has 4 modes on it: heat pump mode, what they call energy saver mode, which is a hybrid, which kicks in an electric resistant element if there's very high demand and low supply. There's electric only, which is definitely the least efficient model and not using the heat pump technology. And then there's a vacation mode. If you're going away, you can just reduce your energy use while you're away. It's got a great control panel, which I can control from my phone. It's also got a mixing valve, keep the water at 130 or 140 degrees temperature inside the tank. And then when somebody's using hot water, goes through the mixing valve, mixes with cold water to get it down to 120 degrees at the tap. And looking at my bill history with all of the heat pump systems that we've had installed over the last few years, our energy bills are definitely lower than when we had a dual fuel home. And so we're continuing to just kind of adjust things and see if we can get our bills down lower, but energy costs are definitely lower for us at this house.
even without solar panels, and just being conscientious about how we use our energy. You'll also see all this new insulation was included during our space conditioning upgrade. They insulated this entire crawl space in addition to doing air sealing in the attic and new insulation in the attic as well. So the heat pump water heater comes with the ability to control it using an app from my phone. It's very easy to control, could be anywhere in the house or even away from the house. Can manage the scheduling, set the temperatures, set it in the different modes, thinking about not using the most electricity during the peak hours between 4 and 9 when the electricity cost is the highest as well. So we've had some more success with setting the tank and running in different modes. So no matter when somebody's taking a hot shower, there's enough hot water to go around. So one other quick and easy thing that we did recently was I basically retrofitted these ceiling lights. It was kind of a mishmash of old CFLs and other lamps. I bought these LED retrofit kits that are really easy. They screw right into the existing base. They fit right into the holes. And then I also put dimmers on everything. So it's a lot better lighting control and just better lighting and much more efficient than the light bulbs that were in there before. Welcome to our very recently renovated kitchen. We had an old kitchen with a lot of old appliances and things that weren't to code and plugs in all the wrong places. And we did that for about 10 years and finally decided we were ready for a new kitchen. Of course, we wanted to make it as energy efficient and convenient and usable as possible. So far, been very, very happy with the induction range. It's my first one, and the learning curve has not been very hard at all. I find the control and ease and precision that you can cook with actually makes everything easier. The ability to clean it and keep it clean very easily is also a great feature. And I'm also finding that I'm not burning my pots and pans as much because you can just control the heat so much better. These fire clay tiles, which are the accent tiles, are from a company called Fire Clay, which is also a California company, also a B Corp. And what's really amazing about them is that you can actually go in and hand design what these colors and patterns are, and then they'll actually fire them for you. So one cool feature about this Bosch stove is that it has what they call like this flex induction zone here. So there's basically two zones that can be operated separately at different power levels. If you have things going on that need different temperature cooking, but then if you have a large pan like this and you're doing something where you want to have a lot of different items being cooked at the same time, you can basically join them together and then have one sort of large cooking surface. It's great for things like breakfast, doing pancakes. We did it this morning. I was able to cook 6 pancakes at a time instead of 3. So that's been kind of a nice feature as well. So out here is just another thing I wanted to share, which is not a big deal, but something I think is pretty accessible. Is we had a gas grill like many other homes do, and a couple of years ago it was time for a new grill, and I got an electric grill. And instead of having to get the propane tanks and having to make sure that the starter lights the flame and everything, now it's just basically plugged in, and when you want to turn it on, you just get the power to it, turn the heat all the way up, let it warm up for 20 minutes, and then you can basically grill anything like you would a normal grill. And then when it's done, simply turn the power off. And so it's nice not having to deal with the tanks of gas and just kind of the fumes of the gas coming off of the grill while you're cooking. So thank you for coming to take a look at our home. We've been really happy with the changes that we've made over the past few years, getting off of natural gas. And in particular, I'm really grateful for the benefits, the health benefits that my family will be getting from removing natural gas and fossil fuels from our home. Not quite done yet. We still have to change out our clothes drying. And when the time comes to redo our roof, which is probably going to be in the next couple of years, that will be the time for us to put on solar panels, and we'll probably look into installing EV charging at the same time. So thank you for visiting.
Thank you, Rich. I also want to welcome Annie Henderson from East Bay Community Energy. Love Annie's got her swag on today. And they're going to be able to answer some questions about rebates. But before we do that, I've got a question for each of you. So first for Rich, okay? Your remodeled kitchen is really beautiful. And in the video, you talked about the heat pump helping with smoke and your own allergies. But how does that induction stove also maybe help with your indoor air quality?
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. Yeah, I think it's probably been discussed in an earlier session, and you'll keep hearing it, but obviously getting off of natural gas cooking is, on paper, in reality, just also improving our indoor air quality quite substantially. We're just not getting all of that off-gassing from the natural gas flames from the old stove. I know that our old stove was not burning efficiently based on the color of the flame, and our ventilation hood was also equally very old and probably not moving the air as well as it could. So just not being exposed to those, those gases, basically, the chemicals that are coming off of the gas stove. Additionally, when we redid our kitchen, the rear wall was completely uninsulated and basically open, more or less, to the outsides. It was not a tight envelope. So because we got permits for everything, the area that was taken apart on the exterior wall had to be, basically insulated. So that's also another great benefit, is just having that extra layer of protection on the rear wall and getting those insulative benefits as well. So yeah, I think all of those things taken together, we were also able to unstick our old double hung windows. So we want to open the windows for some fresh air, ventilation. We're able to do that as well.
Thanks, Rich. That's great. Okay, Annie, question for you. So I know that East Bay Community Energy is offering rebates for high efficiency electric appliances like the heat pump water heaters. So what's motivating EBCE to do this?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. So I'm just real quick, Annie Henderson with East Bay Community Energy. For those of you that aren't familiar with EBCE, we are the local community energy program for Alameda County and the city of Tracy. And so we provide the electricity, our charges show up on your PG&E bill, but we're procuring the power, and we have a goal to be 100% clean by 2030. And we do offer 100% renewable products. So in homes like Rich's, where he is using electricity, before he gets his solar on, which we're excited for him to do, he can sign up for Renewable 100, and we will purchase the equivalent amount of, it's half solar, half wind, so that he is powering his home all on clean power. So we have a number of programs that we have rolled out. One of them is an incentive for a heat pump water heater. We're doing this because we do think this is the way that buildings are moving into the future, right? Why are we combusting fossil fuels within our homes? At the level of my 6-year-old child, That's where her face is, right there at the stove. And so converting to an induction cooktop or to a heat pump water heater or a heat pump for space heating is really more efficient. It's safer for our homes, and it's overall a cleaner way to be living our lives.
Thanks, Annie. There's questions in our Q&A. So Rich, folks are wondering if you could talk a little bit about the noise and the speed of the air and the effectiveness of cooling for your heat pump, for that forced air that you're doing. So is it noisy, and how quickly does your house feel warm or cool if you're using the air conditioning?
Sure. So, all of these new appliances are obviously light years more advanced than probably what's in a lot of homes, things that are 10, 20 years old. So the controls that come with the new heat pump are very sophisticated in terms of scheduling and allowing you to do certain things and programming your schedule based on your lifestyle. The insulation, again, just as a shout out for the efficiency piece, I think it's really important just to make sure you're doing those basic things with the insulation and the envelope, and making sure that the energy that you're using to do the mechanical ventilation or space conditioning basically is, not going out of the windows and doors and other holes in the envelope. So, but that said, I think I said in my video, our old forced air furnace was literally 40 years old or more. And when it came on, like, you couldn't hear the TV anymore. And it was like you could just sort of feel the air blowing around. And in my mind, I'm seeing all of these dust particles going everywhere. So the new system, can't even hear it at all when it comes on. I mean, you might be able to hear it just a very small bit but it has that sophisticated fan system. It's just moving the air as much as it needs to circulate this conditioned air from the heat pump system throughout the house. So don't hear that at all, really. And actually the sound, the lower sound that's coming from the heating system is just another huge quality of life benefit.
Great, thanks, Rich. Amy, do we have time for a quick question for Annie?
Yeah, one more question.
Okay, Annie, I'm going to wrap in two. I noticed you started to type this one, but I think it's important to answer it live. So let's see. The two questions were, oh gosh, where did it go? It was the one about
how do I sign up?
Yeah, the one about, people are wondering, like, they're not sure if they're an EBC customer. Yep. And so maybe if you could speak to that, what does it mean to be an EBC customer? And then maybe just broadly speak if you don't live in EBC's territory. And then they also want to know if your rebates are going to continue past June 2022, so into the next fiscal year.
Great question. Okay, so first, if you want to figure out if you're an EBCE customer, our service is to all of Alameda County, with the exception of the city of Alameda. They have their own municipal utility. And also we serve currently the city of Tracy. You can look at your PG&E bill. Typically, I believe it's page 3 is where you're going to see the East Bay Community Energy charges. If you don't see those there, you may see one of our sister CCA agencies, such as MCE Clean Energy, which serves Contra Costa County, or maybe you're with Clean Power SF, which serves the city and county of San Francisco. So depending on where you live, you have a different community choice program or a community energy program that you can be part of, but you are automatically enrolled. So unless you've opted out, if you live within one of those communities, you are served by a CCA, and all of the CCAs do offer a 100% renewable product. So look at your bill, see who your CCA is. If it's East Bay Community Energy, go to ebce.org and choose Renewable 100. And then you'll get served by 100% renewables. As for the June 1 rebates, so our rebates are available now. There are a bunch of rebates, though, from various entities. It can get a little bit confusing. And we got some sad news. Well, sad news for those looking to install a heat pump, water heater, but great news for those of us who see this as, okay, where we need to go as a community. as of yesterday, the rebates have been reduced, but there are still rebates available. So if you go to ebce.org/hotwater, you'll learn about our rebates, and we have links out to the other rebates available. So there are still rebates available, but people are very interested. And so check that out very soon if you're interested in installing this technology in your home.
Okay, thank you so much, Annie, and thank you, Rich. You've got such a beautiful home. It was really fun to get to know you and see your lovely space.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody.
So now we're going to see a brief sponsor message from East Bay Community Energy. And then we're going to go to a home on the other side of the tunnel from where I live. We're going to see a home in Lafayette.
I'm really excited to be a part of EBCE because of all the opportunities it'll offer me to save money.
I was surprised to find out that I could actually have a choice about where my energy comes from.
Thanks to EBCE, our kids are going to have a clean planet to live on when they're older.
I need the power to work in my studio. Of course, I'd love to be able to use more renewable energy.
We now have choices, and I'm happy to choose East Bay Community Energy as my source for local clean power.
Hi, we're Brenna and Jahan, and this is Estelle, and we live in the Burton Valley neighborhood of Lafayette. This home was built in 1962, and we've lived here for about 5 years. The previous owners were here for 35 years. When we were looking to move, we were primarily looking to downsize, but I had a list of what I really wanted in a home. And so we didn't have to move quickly. Took us about 2 years before we found this home, and we were just immediately, we liked it. We're really happy that we're here. So we have a 1962 home that we really love, but we feel like there's so much that we need to do together to clean up our emissions. And the fastest place we can do this is in our own home. We can just look around, see what needs to be done, and it's still a work in progress. We still have things that we need to work on. For example, we have a gas fireplace in our bedroom that we want to take out and replace with something else. We have a hybrid car, and we hope to go 100% EV because the EVs are now able to get well over 300 miles on a charge. We have a spa, and our spa is heated by gas, and we want to figure out how to take that out and put something else in. Battery system so that we are able to save our energy and use our own energy 100% of the time. One of the ways that we've chosen to try to avoid using air conditioning, we do have a heat pump air conditioner, but we prefer to use it as little as possible. So we put in a whole house fan a couple of years ago. The way that the whole house fan works is it's a very powerful fan. You open up the windows at night and it sucks all of the warm air out through the roof. And then in the morning, you close everything up and it keeps the house cool. And you can do this same technique without a whole house fan, just by opening your windows up, but a whole house fan is more powerful, makes it happen sooner, and it's just a little bit more efficient.
One of the other features of the house is that it has a whole house water filter along with it. The whole house water filter removes chloramines from the water so that when you drink the water, there is none of that chlorine or other contaminants in the water. So this is the whole house water filter. It takes water from the city, puts it through a pre-filter, the filter to remove the chloramines and other contaminants, a post filter to make sure it gets everything, and then a pump to make sure that there's no drop in house pressure as we filter the water. It's also right next to the car charger, so we're trying to make the most use of the space available. So this is our 65-gallon Rheem hybrid water heater, heat pump water heater, and behind me is our heat pump, furnace, and air conditioning. So here we are under the house, and under the house we have this water capture tank, which takes water from the sinks and the showers in the upper levels of the house. The water is then captured. It's put through 4 filters, starting with a 50 micron filter, 20 micron filters, 0.35 micron filters, put through a UV filter as well in order to zap anything that goes through those filters, and then it's piped outside of the house.
We have 2 composters because we have almost 20 oak trees on this property. It's a lot of leaves. So sometimes during certain times of the year, these are so full. So what we also do is we have a leaf shredder, and then we put it on top of these beds. We put it on top of all of our potted plants, and we use that as mulch and try to keep as much of the leaf litter on the property as possible. This is our heat pump, and our house, when we bought it, had a traditional gas heating and a regular air conditioner. We actually have a mini split in our bedroom, and I didn't know what it was, and the owner said, well, that's a heat pump. But it wasn't until I started learning more about heat pumps that we decided we wanted to take out the gas system for the rest of the house and replace it. So while we have a mini split in our bedroom, this services the rest of the house, and it's for a ducted system, and it does both heating and cooling. One of the features we were looking for was a pool because I grew up north, and I love having a pool. It's not something that is as common in that area. So we wanted to try to be as conservative with the water as possible, and energy efficient. So on the right side, you see the solar panels that heat the pool. On the left side of the roof, those are the electric panels for the home. And the thing that's swimming around in the pool is a solar pool skimmer to help with the leaf litter and other debris from the garden. We recently got an electric barbecue in February because we are trying to barbecue in a way that is cleaner. And so this is it, and we have used it, and we have enjoyed it. This path we put in, and it's made with dry stacked rocks and gravel, and there's no mortar in it. So that allows the water to move freely through the ground, and it also allows the ground to shift during the dry season and the wet season. And I'll show you the rest of the path up this way. This path is really wide. You want at least 3 feet, and I think ours might be double that, if not more. But if you have a really wide path, then it helps protect against ticks. They don't like to cross dry areas. And since we have a lot of open space in the back and also on the side of our house, and that tall grass, there are a lot of ticks in that area. And we actually found that this makes a big difference. But again, it's porous. It's going to allow the water to come through. These are rock walls that we put in. They're all dry stacked, so there's no mortar. You can see that the plants can go through them. But what that does is, this is a pretty steep hill. So as the water moves through the soil, it is allowed to continue moving. The water can keep moving and doesn't create too much pressure or other problems in the soil. And these are all the oaks that we're collecting leaves from up here. We started using rock because it's fireproof, and we have we're surrounded by all these trees that we like. So every time you put in a feature with rock instead of wood, there's 2 benefits. One, you know that it's fireproof, but 2, we don't have to replace it every 7 to 10 years, and the work is done. But the other benefit is we have these California lizards that love this. And as soon as you put in rocks, even if you just have 3 rocks and put them in a little little area in your yard, you're going to start attracting these lizards. And these lizards have natural inoculation in their blood against Lyme disease. So if there are ticks around, hopefully they'll get on one of the lizards first. And then by the time if they get down closer to our house, we just don't have to worry about it as much because they're giving them all of this inoculation against the disease. We have lots of little solar lights outside to help us see. They're not too bright, so they just allow us to find our cat if she gets out too late at night or not trip.
So the roof does a lot of work for us. Not only does it hold the panels to heat the pool and the photovoltaic panels to power the house, but also on top of the roof, we have fire suppression sprinklers. We have impact sprinklers throughout the length of the house, also with roof sprinklers in case there's a fire. So we're next to open space, and we have this roof protection in case anything embers come over the hill or anything comes from down the mountain. It's all tied into a pressurized system that's hooked into the house water system. And if catastrophe hits, we can also take water from the pool and pump it to the roof in order to keep the house safe.
So I tend to run a little colder than the rest of my family. And so when Jahan was putting the flooring in this room, because I'm in here a lot, he put in the radiant electrical heating in the floor. And the panel is right here on the wall. I can set it to whatever I want to set it to. And so this area is just a little bit warmer. It makes it really nice in the mornings to have a warm floor. So these are things that I use mostly in the summertime. This is where I would line dry my clothes. And you can see I've had it a long time because it's pretty rusty, but it still works fabulous. So I keep it, and it's easy to put away during the winter, but I do use it a lot in the summer. And this is my solar oven, which also I use in the summer. The solar oven cooks slower, but for me, it's nice because I can start something in the morning and just watch it throughout the day, tilt it a little. It gets up to anywhere between 250, 300 degrees. And we've enjoyed the dinners that we are able to make with it. So thank you so much for coming and visiting our home today. I love older homes, and I think it's worth trying to prepare them for the future. This is the third home that we've owned, and we've done different projects at each one. We found that we are able to do some things depending on the house that we can't do at another, but we do as much as we can because we want to make this a better place for our children.
All right. Welcome to Brenna and Jahan. Are you here?
Yes.
Great.
So one thing that was really exciting about this house for me, as we went around to video, is just thinking about fire, because fire is such a piece of the climate puzzle where we live. And so it was exciting to see a house that and homeowners who had started to take that seriously and implementing interesting strategies.
Right, Amy, we got tons of questions.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So I'm going to start off with one, and just Brenna and Jahan, if you have time after, to please poke around in our Q&A and also in our chat. And then I'll remind everyone, if your questions don't get answered, I will drop the link to our Google form where you can write it in. And after the event, we'll get it sent back out. But just wanted to start with something. Brenna, I know that you're involved with the Climate Reality Project, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and how that ties into the work that you're doing to make your home so climate friendly.
Yeah, I trained with Climate Reality in 2020, and then I joined our local Bay Area chapter. Previously, we had been working on trying to make our home more climate friendly. But I'd come to the conclusion that we needed to work with other people to be more impactful. So joining others has increased my participation in trying to help our community But it's also helped me to understand more solutions that I didn't previously know about for our own home. So I mentioned that the previous owners had put in a heat pump in our room, and I didn't really understand what that was. I understood that it was really cool because it could both heat and cool our room, and it worked really fast. But I didn't know that it was more environmentally friendly or that it was more efficient or cheaper to run until I started working with Climate Reality and attended one of the decarbonization events that they hosted. So I learned about this technology through them. And then I learned about other technologies as well, such as other heat pump technologies. And we've been working towards fully decarbonizing our home. We're not there quite yet, but we're working towards it. So just shout out for Climate Reality. The training is free. Joining a chapter is free. It's all over the world. There are international chapters. And everyone's welcome.
Thanks, Brenna. All right, back to the house. So we're going to start with a couple questions about your gray water system. So there's always the question about soaps. Do you have to use special soaps, and how does that, do alkaline soaps, are they problematic with our soils?
So no special soaps. Anything that is too big to go through a sprinkler or a drip system is filtered out, and then everything else runs out to the yard.
Okay. And folks want to know who actually designed that gray water system. All right, you got to do it yourself.
Is an engineer, yeah.
If you're not a do-it-yourselfer, any recommendations on where folks can go to get resources?
Actually, so yeah, there is a local author who came and spoke at one of our Climate Reality events, and I don't remember her name, but we have her book, and we can share the information in the chat or in the form that you guys are putting together.
Yeah, and if you look at the book, it follows the same principles that I designed. There's, and I can write up a little bit of something about it, but you can buy the parts off the shelf, off Amazon or the Home Depot. It's just putting them together.
Right.
Was it Laura Allen's book? Does that ring a bell?
It's an orange book. I remember the colors, but I just don't remember the name or the author.
So after the tour, people are wondering, are we going to, there's so many resources flying about in the chat and the Q&A, and we will save it and comb through it and try to put as much as we can back out there in a summary email. So that's one thing. Questions about this barbecue. I know Rich also had one. I wasn't sure if it was the same one. People want to know, who makes an electric barbecue, and what should you be considering when you're purchasing one?
So I think ours is a charbroiler barbecue. Again, you can grab it off Amazon. So the thing that we were looking for in trying to buy it was heat. How much heat can you get to the barbecue to heat the food? That's the main difference between a gas barbecue and an electric barbecue. And so the one that we have uses electricity in order to heat the food, but it also tries to use radiant heat as well as conductive heat in order to heat the food. So it probably gets a little bit hotter, a little bit faster than some of the other ones on the market. In terms of temperature difference, it was probably the best one that we found. And I think the price was somewhere between about $150.
Wow, that's good to know. And then that solar oven, that looks super fun. Someone also knows, like, what is that? What kind is it? And are they expensive?
Mine is not expensive. There are more expensive models out there that will get to a higher temperature. So mine, 250 to 300 degrees, but there are models that get up to 500 degrees now. And so you could, do some different type of cooking. Whereas I look for recipes where I'm not going to be too concerned if it doesn't get above 300. And it's gosh, the prices have gone up so much in the last couple of years that I don't know what it costs today. but I think it was around $50 at the time.
Okay, Amy, are we nearing time?
How about just one more and then we can move on?
Okay, one more. Oh, there's a lot in here. Okay, let's see. So was it, so people are kind of wondering about those radiant floors that you mentioned. Was that, is that a challenging thing to install, you know, in terms of permitting and just the getting the right person to do that? What was that process like to put those in?
Yeah, so it's not really hard. If you're going to redo the floor, it's a thermal mat that you just put underneath the tile. You put it into the mortar and it just sits there on top of it. Then you plug it into a temperature controller, plug it into the circuit, and you're away and running. So there's not a lot of technology in order to do it. They're specifically meant so that they go into the mortar, into the cement, and just lie right there on the floor. There's more complicated ones where there's an electric current that gets tracked into a specific pattern if you have an odd shaped room, but the technology is really straightforward. And it holds the heat really well because it's against the cement floor, and so all the heat really radiates up into the house. It's a really, really efficient way to heat a room if you're just going to be in there.
As far as complication, it was a do-it-yourself project for us. By us, I mean mostly Jahan.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you need an installer that can really handle all these systems, you need to reach out to Jahan. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have an engineer around for sure.
Yeah, but it's not that hard. If you can put mortar on the floor and a tile on top of it, you can install a heat mat.
Well, thank you guys. We're going to, and hopefully you can stick around to answer the many questions that are landing in chat about your house and your systems.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm just going to do a quick sponsor message. So Got Watts is one of the major sponsors of today's tour, and they are a one-stop shop for solar, storage, EV charging, panel upgrades, whole house fans like what Jahan and Brenna had, and heat pump systems for heating, cooling, and filtering air. And on tomorrow's tour, we're going to visit a Prairie Craftsman home in Rockridge that did a big all-at-once retrofit and used Got Watts. So if you are looking to use a single company to do an all of the above kind of approach, Got Watts is a great choice. So now we're going to our second presenter. And Jessica, do you want to introduce Trevor?
Yes, thank you. So our second presenter, Trevor Probert, develops educational resources and workshops on composting, soil health, and carbon farming for Stopwaste. Many of the homeowners on the tour are ceasing to burn fossil fuels in their homes, but Trevor is going to share with you another part of the climate change puzzle, which is how we can draw down the greenhouse gas emissions that are already in the atmosphere and sequester them in the ground. Welcome, Trevor.
Hey, thank you very much. Let me put my slides up. It's great to be here. Really appreciate everyone. So as folks said, my name is Trevor Probert. I work with an organization called Stopwaste. Stopwaste is a public agency that serves Alameda County. We work with residents, businesses, nonprofits, schools around reducing waste and achieving sustainability goals. And I get to work on a team where we partner with home gardeners, urban farmers, and community groups around building healthy soil by making and using compost to grow food, but also to sequester carbon. Soil carbon sequestration has been a focus of a lot of research over the last 10 years, some of which Stopwaste has been a part of. So I'm excited to share a little bit about that, and then just also share some practices that are really valuable for home gardeners to utilize in order to try to use soils as a carbon sink and draw down atmospheric carbon. So for folks who are unfamiliar with the term carbon sequestration, the whole thought is that globally, soils contain a tremendous amount of carbon. If you were to look at soils, plants, the atmosphere, the oceans, and kind of divvy it up like, okay, how much carbon is in each one of those pools? Soils contain a lot. And over the years, due to disturbance, land use change, just poor treatment, soils have lost a lot of carbon. And so as homeowners or people who have access to soil, the way that we manage and impact the soil can help return carbon to those soils and help make soil a carbon sink. The process of carbon sequestration is very complicated, and research has been revealing a lot of new information about the process. But if I was to break it down into 4 general steps, the first step is, it's a very plant-driven process. The first step is through drawdown. So plants, we've been talking a lot in this, these tours about reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Well, plants through photosynthesis naturally draw down the amount of carbon that's in the atmosphere by absorbing carbon during photosynthesis. The next step, which during photosynthesis, a lot of folks don't realize that plants are using some of that carbon to grow their own bodies, but they're also releasing a lot of carbon through their roots into the soil. And that is a process called exudation. The roots are releasing carbohydrates into the soil called exudates, and they're feeding those carbohydrates to soil microbes. So the next step, soil microbes are accessing this carbon that's been deposited into the soil by plant roots. They're consuming it, they're breaking it down, they're exchanging it for plant roots. So microbes and plant roots have a very symbiotic relationship. And as the soil microbes consume these carbohydrates, their populations grow, they die, they grow again. They begin depositing this carbon in deeper layers of the soil profile. And over time, what we want to see is this carbon, as it moves deeper into the soil, and some other things happen to it, some of that carbon can remain in the soil for thousands of years. That's what sequestration is getting carbon from the atmosphere and returning it to the soil and keeping it there for a really long time. In the atmosphere, we know that too much carbon is a driver of climate change, but when carbon's in the soil, it's a very beneficial material. Carbon itself is the backbone of healthy soil. It is an energy source for soil microbes. It really helps the physical structure of the soil. So by managing the soils that we have in our homes correctly and building healthy soil, we're kind of helping solve one problem of global climate change, and we're actually creating an additional benefit of improving the health of soil and all the sort of the ecosystem that revolves around our soil. We can actually measure how much carbon is in the soil and the change in carbon in soils. Stopwaste has been doing this with urban farms for a number of years. We partnered with about 10 urban farms in Alameda County, and these farms are using practices like using compost, mulch, growing cover crops, all sorts of things that I'll talk about in a moment. And we took soil samples at different depths of their soil profiles. This is on the right-hand side, there's a little snippet of data from a farm in Fremont called Fremont Leaf. And you can see from 2018 to 2020, when we took soil samples at different depths in the soil, the percentage of carbon had increased during those years. And I think across the entire acre of their site, it was something like over 5 metric tons of carbon had been added to their soils between 2018 and 2020. So people really do have an impact on how much carbon is in their soil. It's no modest amount. This idea of carbon farming is we can actually manage soils with the goal of sequestering carbon. And so all across the state, there are folks in agriculture who are doing things like applying compost. Stopwaste actually owns a piece of rangeland property in the Altamont Hills out east of Livermore. And we've been applying compost to hundreds of acres of this piece of property. and then partnering with UC Merced to actually take soil samples and to measure this change in carbon over time. So it is a practice that folks are taking very seriously and applying across the state. As home gardeners, you don't necessarily need to be taking soil samples and sending it to a lab to see changes in carbon in your soil. A lot of times you can actually make just visual observations and notice these differences. These are 2 soil samples that were taken from a farm in Livermore, Eden Garden. The soil samples on the left and the soil samples on the right, they're the exact same soils that came from the same location. The soils on the left came from outside of the garden. The soils on the right came from inside the garden where they're applying compost, mulch, and all sorts of things. And you can see just a slight difference in color. The soil samples on the right are a little darker. That is carbon, that's organic matter. And when we sent these samples to a lab, the samples on the right contain twice as much carbon as the samples on the left. And so once again, another example how just managing soils in our landscapes can have a huge impact on the carbon. So I'm gonna go through 6 practices that home gardens can do to both increase the amount of carbon in their soil and also try to reduce the amount of carbon that naturally leaves soil. The first one, which I was so excited to see the previous homeowner tour talk about how they compost all their oak leaves. That was great to see. The first practice is making and using compost. You don't necessarily have to, it'd be great for you to make your own compost, but you can get compost without making it yourself. Compost is decomposed organic matter, and when you apply it to soil, you're feeding the microbes that are responsible for working with plant roots to sequester carbon and break down carbohydrates and put it into forms that will stay in the soil for a long period of time. So compost is a very easy practice, but it's a very impactful practice. Next is applying mulch as a soil cover. Mulch is really important because while it adds a little bit of carbon to the soil, it actually plays a protector role. Whenever you have a mulch covering a bare soil, it's reducing the amount of carbon that leaves the soil. If you have bare soil on your property or in your landscape, bare soil unfortunately is losing carbon over time. And so either having mulch as a soil cover or just plants and ground cover is a really important practice. The next practice is planting perennial plants. The pictures on the left and the middle on the left, if you're a vegetable gardener, there are lots of perennial vegetables that you can grow like artichokes. The picture on the right there's lots of perennial ornamental plants, especially things like California natives and other Mediterranean plants that are low water. Perennial plants have a much deeper and usually a more complex root system than annual plants do. The picture on the right shows the difference between a perennial grass and an annual grass species. And you can see the depth and just the density of the root system is so different. And so when we plant perennials in our garden, we have deeper roots that are delivering those exudates, the carbon, deeper into the soil profile and engaging with soil microbes at a deeper level as well. So planting perennials is a very important practice. Planting a diversity of species is also important because typically in the soil, microbes tend to congregate around their favorite, plant root system. If you have a diversity of plants planted in your garden, you generally will have a diversity of microbes in your soil. And we always know diversity is a good thing. The more diverse microbes in the soil, the more balanced the ecosystem is in doing the soil carbon sequestration benefits. Practice 5 is avoiding synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. These are materials that are typically have a pretty high embedded carbon in the product itself. They can also, if used incorrectly, damage the health of your soil and impact your soil's ability to sequester carbon. These are often material or additives that can be replaced by compost, mulch, worm castings if you need higher nutrition. But also using things like compost tea as a foliar spray or something that can be used in exchange of something like a pesticide or herbicide. Oh, and that picture is a compost tea being applied. It's not a pesticide. And then the last thing, this is probably most important for folks who are vegetable gardeners, but avoiding tilling, or at least highly reducing the amount of tillage that you do. We want soil to be chunky. When soil has a good structure, like you see in these two aggregates, soil aggregates that you see here, soil with good structure is much more capable of holding onto and sequestering carbon. When we break up and till and damage soil structures, they both release carbon at a higher rate and then struggle to maintain and add new carbon as well. So avoiding tilling is a really important practice. I just want to quickly mention that, and if you live in Alameda County, there's a very exciting project that's emerging for home gardeners. Cities are required now through a new law to procure a large amount of compost, and this is too much compost than they need, and they're looking at strategies to share that compost with the public, with residents. And so you might see compost hubs beginning to pop up in your cities. These are locations usually at urban farms or community gardens that are partnering with the city, where they are providing free compost to residents. So this first pilot project here is located in Alameda. I have some information that I can share with folks, but these are locations where you are welcome to come and essentially self-serve and pick up as much free compost as you can carry. And hopefully over the next year, we'll have additional sites throughout Alameda County opened up for folks. So these are our Stopwaste resources. And at this point, I'll kind of stop and I'll see if there's any questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Trevor. I'm going to move us on to the next home, but Trevor's going to pop down into the Q&A to answer your questions. But, you know, I appreciate so much what you're doing. You know, obviously I always knew that compost was good for plants, but I have a sort of a new appreciation for it as actually a crucial substance to help with climate change in the, you know, carbon sequestration arena.
Yes, there's most of the new research that's happening around carbon farming and sequestration is looking at compost as a main practice for that. So very exciting, and hopefully there'll be new research in the next couple of years that can help people even quantify how much carbon is being sequestered in soils.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you. And we're gonna now go to the next home, which is Dan and Tamara, who live in North Oakland, and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Dan Rademacher.
And I'm Tamara Schwartz.
And this is our house in Temescal District in Oakland. We've lived here since 2002. When we moved into the neighborhood, it was a one-bedroom house and for sale by owner. And there were a few different elements like that that made it a place that we could afford to buy back then. So this spring, we installed a heat pump HVAC system and also a water heater. And the heat pump, we've got the controller over here in our dining room, and it's a Fujitsu. Honestly, I forget some of the details, but it's been a really nice system. We replaced a gas furnace, and we did that work with the performance builder, and they came and they measured everything, and they sealed up the door and did the fan test and things like that. And during the process, we did make a few compromises. There were some, like we could have moved some of our heat vents for super optimal efficiency, but we had a really small house and decided to leave some of them in the same place that they were. And it's worked just fine for us since then.
We remodeled the kitchen in 2010, and we tried to select as many sustainable materials as we could. So several of the choices we made include the flooring, which is marmoleum, which is a product that's made from linseed oil and sawdust. We also used paper stone for our counters. And then the tile is from a company called Fire Clay, and those tiles were made from
recycled porcelain fixtures like old sinks and toilets. And then the other things that we did in the kitchen include LED lighting and lots of woodwork by Dan.
And so I built all these cabinets. I used to work as a cabinet maker, and I make most of our furniture, or basically all of our furniture and cabinets. And so this stuff is all FSC certified wood and then custom cabinetry throughout, certainly built to last. And this piece of granite we got out of a neighbor's front yard. It had been abandoned from some unknown project, so we built a little island around that found object. You might notice we're into reuse of anything we can. This is a drying rack. We wash and reuse all our plastic bags. We also have recycled denim insulation in the attic above the kitchen. In our bathroom, we've got a High Sierra low flow shower head that's like 1.5 gallons per minute. We've had that for probably close to 20 years. I'm a huge fan. They never clog. They work really well. So we added this bedroom way back in 2007, and when we did that, I wanted to do as much custom woodworking as I could, and for the flooring, we did a compressed bamboo flooring that's like pre-finished and really durable, and we think really beautiful. And then this closet I built is made partly of urban reclaimed eucalyptus, so blue gum eucalyptus trees like you see in the Oakland Hills. Some folks in Richmond at that time were making it into flooring. And I was able to repurpose that for the panels of these cabinets. I made some nightstands out of some leftover Douglas fir that was in a cabinet shop where I worked. There were just scraps of wood here and there, and I was able to collect enough of them to make a couple of nightstands.
Welcome to our backyard. The back garden is planted with a mixture of California natives and other drought-tolerant plants, as well as food-bearing plants. And that includes things like our blueberry patch over here, along around the back of the house here are a number of native plants. And then we have several trees and other interesting things behind me. And then we're going to show you the exterior portion of the heat pump systems around the side of the house.
So this is where we were able to put the exterior units of both the water heater, the sand and water heater, and the Fujitsu HVAC system. And we were lucky. There was some debate over whether the city of Oakland would allow it in the space that's near our property line, but obviously it's also a space that we can't really do anything with. So it was approved, and that was great. So the Sandin unit here, we chose because, I mean, they told us it was the most eco-groovy, and it uses CO2 for its refrigerant, and there's a tank inside that this is connected to. And we also discovered that, so we had, the hot water heater was really what drove this whole recent project with the heat pump systems. We had a 30-year-old hot water heater. It was starting to rattle around with sounds from minerals that were built up into it. It wasn't properly vented. There were a lot of problems with it. We figured at some point it was just going to break, and if we didn't act, ahead of time, we'd be stuck with whatever was available at a local plumber. So instead, we planned ahead and got this Sandin unit, and we've been really happy with it, and it's also super efficient. And then the HVAC system here, I don't know if you can hear, but they're very quiet. Our bedroom is right here, and we don't hear them at all. In fact, our old furnace, we used to carefully set the timer just so it would start like 5 minutes before we woke up, because it always woke us up. And we were so used to, like, if the furnace is on, we can't sleep. And this new unit is just whisper quiet. We can never hear anything. So we actually had to get used to that. Like, oh, we can just have the thing running whenever we need to for comfort and not worry about it waking us up. In the summer, it'll also do cooling, work as an air conditioner. The ducting and venting system is much better sealed and tighter than our old forced air gas system, and it's got a particulate filter that's kind of sealed onto the cold air return inside our dining room. So we're not exactly looking forward to fire season, whoever does, but we feel like we'll be a lot more comfortable if we need to keep the windows closed for a week or something like that in the coming years. So this is the electrical system of the house, and back in 2013 we got solar put on. We did a lease through Sungevity, that was an Oakland-based company at the time. That lease has run out, and now we own the panels as of, I think, sometime last year. And that's a 1 kilowatt system, so it's not very big, but our house is less than 1,000 square feet. So before, we also got an electric car, and here's our electric car charger. Before the electric car, and before the recent HVAC and water heater electrification, we were generating more power than we needed with this system. We'll see in the coming year how that plays out. Something we might do in the future is add more solar capacity to the house. When we did get the electric water heater and HVAC system, the first folks we talked to thought we were going to need to upgrade our panel. It's a pretty small, it's a 100 amp service. It's pretty jammed with circuits. But it turns out we were able to accommodate. They did some more careful load analysis, and I think we talked to a couple different electricians. And I've got a wood shop that's running 220. We've got a sub panel for the kitchen. There's a lot of reasons someone might walk up to our house and say you definitely have to upgrade. That was going to be, I don't know, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 and more trouble with PG&E. So we were excited to get more opinions and a solution that didn't require that. One simple thing we've done is just have a clothesline and use it. So this is a clothesline that extends maybe 28 feet into our to the end of our garage, and we can put a load of laundry up here and just use the sun to dry our clothes. And that couldn't get more efficient than that.
So this is our compost bin, and we have been composting at home the entire time we've lived here, and composting is something that we do in a really pretty easy, low maintenance way. We put our food scraps and our any clippings and green matter from the garden in this bin, and then we turn it once in a while, and that might be a couple times a year. So we then are creating compost that we can use in the garden, and we're keeping all of that compostable material out of landfills, and it helps improve the health of our soil. It helps with carbon sequestration in soil, and it's a pretty nice sort of closed loop system.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's a discussion that happens between personal decisions that we make or consumer decisions. It's often posited as a political action or policy action, and I think that for us it's a both and situation that we want to take those actions politically and professionally in our work and in our political action that we think will achieve the outcomes that we all want, but also to live that way personally in this place that we've lived now for 20 years.
So we've done a lot of these projects and and made choices, some of which are really small things, and some of them are bigger things. And over the years, it kind of it adds up. And I think that is sort of satisfying to think about that cumulative impact, and the fact that we're doing we're sort of doing the best that we can to make choices that keep our home as efficient and low impact as possible.
Thank you to Dan and Tamara. And this was really fun for me because Dan and I used to work together at the Ecology Center a million years ago. So it was fun to reconnect through this project and to see all the things that they have done with their home.
Okay, can I ask some questions, Amy?
Go for it.
So many. All right. So thank you so much, Dan and Tamara. Really, really inspiring to see the many ways, big and small, the changes you've made. Dan, I wanted to ask you first, I noticed this real intentionality that you brought to your woodworking choices. Tell us what FSC certified means, and excuse me, what are local sources for that or other reclaimed wood?
Sure. So that's Forest Stewardship Council, and it's a group that certifies that wood is timber is managed in a responsible way and in a sustainable way, so you don't have the kinds of clear cuts and things like that that are common in industrial timber harvesting. So I've tried over the years to use as much of that as possible. When I can't, sort of first step would be reclaimed wood. Second step would be FSC, and always making stuff that'll last a really long time, no matter what. Getting FSC wood, at least for custom woodworking projects in the Bay Area, is harder than it used to be. There was a supplier in Oakland for many, many years that went out of business. And so now it's a little harder, but there are a few options, especially for really interesting reclaimed woods. There's Ponderosa Millworks, and then up in Petaluma, there's a place called Heritage Salvage. So they're doing a lot of the work of, as trees come down, cutting them into lumber that folks can use for interesting projects. And I might have had a couple of other sources up on the website write up about our house.
Yeah, just a reminder that that you guys can follow up on the eastbaygreenhome.com website, and if you click on the individual home that you're interested in, the homeowner has provided a great list of resources.
Thanks, Amy. Sorry to cut you off. I've just so many questions to ask you.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I've never heard the term paper stone counter before. And there are a few questions about that coming in from attendees here. So they want to know, tell us more about it. Do you like them? Do you not? And did you consider other green alternatives for your countertops?
We did. So we like them a lot. And we've had them for what, 10, 11 years now, 10 years, and they've held up really well. And it's made of recycled paper that's compressed with some sort of vegetable derived resin of some kind. And the other one that we looked at was Rich Light, which is a very similar product. And as I recall, we just liked the color of paper stone better. I don't remember there being a big sort of quality or price difference. And I don't know that we looked at any other. It's been a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did probably consider some other countertop options.
Oh, there were ones made of like recycled glass back in the day. There was a company,
Yeah.
Terrazzo, that used to be called something else, that was making things out of like recycled stoplights and stuff like that.
Yeah. In terms of, I mean, selecting the paper stone, which I think is a brand name, right? It was, for us, I think it was kind of, figuring out in terms of the material, the impact of the material, the cost of the product, and the durability and, sort of wear and tear over time. We ended up deciding that seemed like a good option for us. And it's held up well in terms of like, if it gets scratched, it can be, the material can be sanded and refinished, which is nice. So, minor scratches and stuff can be taken care of that way.
Great. I think, Amy, one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, there are a few questions in the Q&A, and please, Dan, Tamara, if you have time to stay on, if you could poke around in there and in the chat. But these have to do with your home compost bin. Do they attract critters and pests? And how do you keep them out if they do?
Well, let's see. So that bin is a vintage biostack that is a great design. And I would say, I don't know why, but we really never had problems with rodents until maybe last year. And we've had to trap a couple of rats since then. But so we went 19 years or something.
I mean, the design of this particular the biostack bin has been, at least for us, it's been pretty effective at excluding rodents. But then also what you put into your bin can affect how desirable it is for rodents. So there are some things that can go into the municipal green waste collection that that we don't tend to put in our home compost, just because they might be more attractive to rats. So.
Okay, well, that reminds me of a little message that I wanted to plug after listening to Trevor's presentation, which is, even if, there's a lot of folks that either don't have the time or don't have the space to compost themselves. And for those people, I just want to say how important it is to put everything in the green bin, because then you are providing these raw materials that ultimately become this great substance that is sequestering carbon. So thank you, Dan and Tamara. It was great to see you guys again. And hopefully you can bop down into the Q&A to answer more questions.
Yeah, thanks. You.
All right, take care. So before we get to our last home, I just wanted to do this sponsor message from Eco Performance Builders. And these guys are the people who designed and installed Dan and Tamara's heat pump systems. And Eco Performance Builders will collaborate with you to create the most efficient and high-performing heating, cooling, and water heating systems for your home. They also pay special attention to insulation and leak sealing so that your heat pump is right-sized. Eco Performance Builders can help you save energy, get your home off fossil fuels, improve your indoor air quality, and make you and your family more comfortable. And on our Green Home Tour last year, we featured 2 homes that had heat pump systems designed by Eco Performance Builders, and that was Kathy Kramer's and Stephanie Prugel's. And this company is well known in electrification circles, and I've never met a customer who wasn't extremely satisfied with their work. Now we're going to go to our last home for the day, Mateo and Nilo in Berkeley.
Hi, my name is Mateo. This is Nilo. We're part of the Nube family, and you are in our home. We've been living in this house for approximately 13 years, and our family's been in the South Berkeley, North Oakland neighborhood for on and off 30 years. And we live here next to some of our best friends. It's a house, it's a community of 2 homes. We've torn down the fence in the back, so we share a lot of space together. And today we're going to let you know a lot about our rainwater and gray water systems that we've created that are a real joy to have as part of the infrastructure in this home. So a big aha I experienced about 15 years ago was realizing, oh, wow, I've been purposely made illiterate about home. And when I use the word home on purpose, because ecology, like eco means home. Ecology is the knowledge of homes. Like, wow, I don't understand how my watershed works. I don't understand how my food shed works. Like, we get taught all these irrelevant things in school, like dates of wars, but we don't get taught, like, where does our water come from? So this infrastructure is something we all need to have access to and build as fast as possible, or else we're going to be in serious trouble. But the good thing is there are many ways of managing home. Economy is managing home. So if mismanagement of home has been globalized, we can reclaim proper management of home. And that's what we're doing here and what we all need to scale up towards. So welcome to our backyard. This is what I was telling you about. This was the fence. It mostly no longer exists. So the two homes share this whole back lot. And this, when we moved in, this was all weeds and overgrown, and it actually had a lot of, decay in terms of old garbage and stuff that we had to remove. So everything you see here, we created or we co-created. We grow a lot of food. We have annuals and perennials, and on the whole outskirt of the whole property, we have over a dozen fruit trees. So everything from Asian pears, European pears, apricots, grapes, a bunch of stuff. And then we have a whole rainwater system. There's 3 components to it that probably capture close to 2,500 gallons of water. Great. So I mentioned we have 3 different rainwater catchment systems here. There's 2 that are maybe a lot of you are familiar with, 50-gallon containers that are just daisy chained. So we have 2 on that side of the properties. But the one I'm showing you right here is the one we're proudest of. It's one huge system that captures 1,600 gallons, and it captures it from, this would be the east side. It's 1/4 of the roof, and up there is where the gutter captures the water. This is the first flush, and then you'll see a drape across here, goes down, and it just skirts the fence all the way up there. And in a moment, you'll start seeing the actual container. That big green container captures 1,600 gallons. And it fills rather quickly, meaning 1 or 2 good rains are the ones we used to be used to, will do it. And again, I mentioned, that's 1/4 of this roof. So we're capturing a portion of the potential of rainwater from roof on this property alone. We could capture a lot more. So the element that I think is most fascinating about this rainwater barrel, again, I mentioned 1,600 gallons. Where Nilo is sitting, the top, this is where the water comes in from the catchment. As long as this part is lower than where the water is coming into the piping off of the roof from the gutter, as long as this is lower, gravity does all the work. People often ask me, do you have a pump? How does this work? No, it's gravity. Even though, we're negotiating about 30 feet of pipe to get here. Actually, even, I think it's more, maybe 40 or 50. Gravity's still pushing it up in. This is at an incline. So this barrel is on higher ground than that roof, but nevertheless, the weight of the water and gravity gets it here, which I just think is super cool.
These are some of the other barrels that are daisy chained together. There's a small pipe here that leads into some of them and brings the water in. There's also this pipe, which we're repairing right now, so it's not connected, that leads the water into here.
Great. So we also have gray water systems, meaning the laundry machines in both houses are connected to piping that then feeds the water from the washing machine into the garden. So where Nilo's at, you'll see, can you show them? Yeah, there's multiple outlets that are feeding multiple trees and other things in the garden coming out of Mark and Michelle's house. Great, so one of the really important and interesting parts of the story of what you've seen on the grounds here is that Michelle, my neighbor, and we have been part of an organization called Movement Generation, the Justice and Ecology Project, for over 15 years now. So all of the infrastructure I'm talking about, the gray water systems, the rainwater systems, the compost toilet I'm about to show you, most of that has been installed through workshops that our organization has co-hosted with experts who do this kind of installation. And most of the labor has been volunteer labor of folks learning like ourselves how to do this. So we haven't built this just to have it ourselves, but actually to demonstrate what we need to build at scale, at a municipal and a bioregional level, to actually live in a sustainable way with our watershed and our energy shed and the rest. So in here, there's what's known as a dry toilet or a composting toilet. I lift it up here, there's no smell, and there's no plumbing. So people sit down, and if you do number 2, you just use some of this on top of it, and when the urine we capture and use it as fertilizer, we just mix it with water, usually 4 to 1, 5 to 1, and it's great fertilizer, particularly for the fruit trees, for example. And then we actually cure the feces. So we put it in big barrels. It stays there for a year or two, and the bacteria and all the rest is burnt, and then we can use that too. We don't put it on, say, a lettuce bed. We don't put it on edibles, but a fruit tree, for example, will love it. It's golden. And then similarly, you'll see a shower in here, and the shower here is gray water as well. So it pipes out to some fruit trees right behind it and some other plants. So that water is captured by the property as well, and is used on site. So I was talking about the dry toilet, the composting toilet. So here we have these white containers is where we capture the urine. And as I mentioned, you mix it 4 to 1, 5 to 1 water, like 4 parts water, 5 parts water, 1 part urine, and it's excellent fertilizer. And although it may seem counterintuitive, it's a great fertilizer amongst other reasons because it's sterile. So you can actually put it, you don't pour it on the edibles itself because you're trying to feed the roots, but it's great fertilizer. And then here, is the more complex stuff that you need to actually treat with care. These are the barrels where we put the feces and we let it cure for at least a year. And this you don't put on edible bed. You don't put it, like I said, on a lettuce bed. You feed it to a fruit tree, for example. And as long as it's like sealed, but has some space for oxygen to get in, the curation is happening. So we're in the laundry room on our side of the house. So this is one of the gray water systems. So there's piping behind this washing machine that gives you an option. If you're doing your regular wash and you use something like this, which is specifically designed to be garden friendly, and there's nothing in this Oasis laundry detergent that could hurt plants, it's complementary, then the water, every time you run the washing machine, can feed into the garden. So the piping right now is done in such a way that every time we run the laundry, there's piping that goes under the house, kind of in the crawl space, that's where we installed it, and feeds a fig tree, an apple tree, and other things in the front of the house. Now, if you ever like, oh, I have some whites that got stained, I need to use a little bleach, all I need to do is handle the switch in the back of the laundry, and then it moves it, instead of going into the gray water system, it goes into the regular ebb mud piping, and we'll just go to the regular sewage system. So it's very, very straightforward, very easy, anybody can use it. So we're at the front of the house. This is the piping that feeds out of the crawl space that traverses the whole house from the back where the laundry machine is. And it comes out here and pops out, and basically the water, every time we do laundry, this fig tree is happy, this apple tree is very happy, that geranium and all of these ornamentals. This is marionberry that's just starting to show some leaves, so we get delicious berries. So there's a lot happening here. This nasturtium is really thankful that it's getting regular water. So yeah, this whole front, it lives off of the dirty laundry that we decide to wash. Thanks so much for visiting with us and learning about what we built in this home. And one of the reasons we're very excited to feature it is because the truth is, every home should look like this. And more importantly, it should be the kind of thing where it's not just homeowners who can afford to do it that get to do it, but we actually should have subsidized programs that ensure that, be it a rental apartment building or a single family home, every place has been retrofitted. For example, that rainwater system I showed you, we could be popping open every intersection in this neighborhood and dropping in a 10,000, 20,000 gallon capturing system and daisy chaining a bunch of roofs in this neighborhood. And then we'd all have rainwater. There are many different ways for us to rethink creatively how to, for example, adapt to living in drought country. But the point is we need to scale it up, and we need to ensure that everybody has full access to things like water, which are a human right. So I appreciate you visiting in our home to learn about this.
Mateo, welcome. I'm glad you could make it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
So it looks like your frame is a little frozen for a second, but one of the things that I had wanted to say in queuing up your video is just how climate change is really kicking drought. I mean, drought has always been a part of the ecology here, but climate change is just making it into this next level thing where we need to really start rethinking how we use our water. And so seeing your home, it was very inspiring to see, you know, how expansively you were thinking about it.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me know if there's a lot of glitches and I'll turn off my camera because I'm not in the city right now.
Okay. Rebecca?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I wasn't sure if you wanted me. Rebecca, did you want to start with a question?
Sure, we got lots of questions for you.
Great.
Really, really inspiring. You know, I was just listening to that, thinking about, wow, what if we could scale this up? But you know, one thing that struck me is you're showing us all these water features, and you said, I didn't know about this. I didn't really understand where it came from, how it worked, and that you were able to learn about it and install it in the context of workshops. Where people were learning along with you, how to build gray water and rainwater systems. So could you just tell us a little bit more about movement generation and how people could get involved in this kind of approach?
I'm so sorry, Rebecca. Right when you were asking the question, the internet gummed up, so I didn't actually hear your question. Sorry.
No problem. We just kind of curious about movement generation and how folks could get involved, like how they can learn how to do this in this hands-on way through workshops with others.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, that's a beautiful question. As you know, as an organization, who we work with and what we do is we work with grassroots organizations that are organizing, say, around tenant rights, immigrant rights. Started in the Bay Area in our bioregion, and now are working at translocally in many regions around Turtle Island. We wouldn't necessarily be the organization you would come to say like, hey, we want to learn about gray water. We originally learned from when I referenced in the video, like when we did the co-workshops, we were working with an organization at the time was called Gray Water Gorillas that then became Gray Water Action. Laura Allen is one of our great teachers. Brock Dolman at the Water Institute at the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center is also one of our great teachers. I mean, I think the answer to your question, in all honesty, is a need we all need to co-create. It's pretty goofy in many ways that we in 2022 are still having a conversation like, where do we go to learn about this stuff? And I'd say actually one of our greatest needs is, and I know a lot of people are working on this front, so it's an invitation for us to push harder. We need to be pushing our county supervisors and municipal governments to just be funding both the educational side and the infrastructure build outs yesterday. Because I think part of what I was getting at in the last segment is like, it actually makes no difference if some of us have some boutique homes where this infrastructure is built out. We need 80-90% of homes built out in the next 5-10 years. So yeah, it was inspiring to see in Trevor's segment 20 minutes ago about the build out, ideally, hopefully within the next couple of years, of compost sites in every neighborhood. I mean, he didn't quite phrase it that way, but that's that was the invitation. Let's get to that place where all of us know on a weekly basis where to get our composting materials, because it's at scale. I would love to see that every youth center, every school, and every neighborhood had kind of the satellite info table that said, like, if you want to install water retrofits in your home, this is who you call. And then you've got our Green Core that just comes and does it for you. And that it's all built into, say, our tax system. Again, I'm just riffing here, but that's my long way of saying movement generation isn't who you call if you want to learn about this. Unfortunately, we don't have that capacity. Part of our role is to organize with others towards that critical mass of tipping the political will of our system to really build out that infrastructure. Yeah, and I see Susan commenting and thank you for putting that. Susan Park is a wonderful comrade who does this work, and she's pointing, Dig Cooperative and others are organizations that actually have been building systems like this out for 15-20 years. So there definitely is a network of providers who have the expertise to help folks build it out now.
I know that before the pandemic, that Greywater Action you could often go to Greywater Action and see on their website
Yes.
opportunities for workshops, and I think that they're probably doing things online since we're still in the pandemic, but maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, that there's a return to more of these on the ground workshops like what you were able to have at your home.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the good point. We kind of plugged into what Greywater Action was already doing, as you said, providing quarterly workshops, like installs on a regular basis where 20, 30 people can come and learn, and folks will have the know-how, then turn around, do it themselves, or become the next site for Greywater Action's installation.
Great, Melia, we have a lot of technical questions in the Q&A about all your different systems. I'm going to take a few at the Greywater. So if the Greywater goes directly out to the garden, and if it isn't stored, how do you how does that work when you have different needs for water? So in the winter, you might have less need. Well, when we used to get rain, you had less need for water versus the summer. So how do you manage that seasonality if you just got this water kind of going out there on a regular? Imagine the same, more or less the same amount is going out each day, depending on when you shower or I'm sorry, when you do your wash and stuff.
Right. Both my anecdotal experience having that system in this home for about a decade plus, and then have had it in a prior home, and then just my general read, you don't really run the risk of releasing too much water. I suppose, unless you're growing some highly sensitive plants that can be overwhelmed by water. The point being that I've never been in a situation where I've seen trees or plants going like, wow, you're watering me too much, slow down. So in that sense, it's a very hands-off reality. I suppose there might be a situation where if you're a home that sets up a Greywater system, but you don't actually use you don't use the washing machine very often, and you have a high water need plant, then you might need to monitor and do some more watering in the summer. Or let me rephrase that. On Michelle's side in particular, since the Greywater system does feed her like annual water beds, in the summer, to your point, she has to complement the Greywater with extra watering as well. So I think you just have to use your common sense in terms of, oh, I use my machine once a week or once every 2 weeks, and I just planted a bed of lettuce. It's not going to be all the Greywater in the summer. I need to actually do some hand watering as well, or have an irrigation system.
Great. All right. How do you capture the urine? Like, is it just a manual thing? What if someone wants to know?
Yes, that's a great question.
Like a pipe?
Again, I think this is no shade on any of us, but it's pretty absurd that we're grown-ups and this really simple technology is new to us. I happened to learn about it when we installed our first system, 15, 20 years ago. When you sit down, the contraption you're sitting on has two sections, and there's a divider in the middle. And the way our physiognomy is, it's pretty evident. The latter half is for feces, the front is for urine. So you just ensure that there's a divider. There's a tubing system from the front end that captures the urine that's separate. And then you kind of, that's daisy chained, if you will, into whatever gallon container you can turn on a regular basis, a 10-gallon container, a 5-gallon container. You have to be mindful. We have it set up outside. Oh, when it's starting to fill up, you need to supplant it with a second one, and you need to start using that for watering. So it's basically a separate capture. There's a separation between the feces, which when you poo, you always need to put sawdust on top of it. That's what keeps it dry. That's what keeps it from smelling. And that's one of the contradictions of our modern sewage system, that neither urine or feces become foul until you mix them, and it's the chemical combustion that happens between them that creates a lot of foulness. So there's actually just the simplicity of separating them keeps them both from zero waste and reuse perspective, very pristine. And if I can add one more thing, I mean, what I can learn from Laura Allen, she said this to me ages ago, is like the irony of the meat-rich diet of first world societies is that human compost is incredibly rich because we overeat. You know, so actually from the vantage point of plants that are fed well-cured human compost in a first world context, it's really, really high value. Again, it's ironic, but it's factually very interesting.
Hey, Mateo, quick follow-up on the toilet, and thanks for explaining that there's actually a divider there. So one of the attendees said that, you know, they used a dry toilet when visiting their grandmother in Europe. So, you know, but it was like, had never seen it in a home in 2022. So like this old technology, you know, brought new again. And they're wondering, is this the only toilet in your home, or do you also have a plumbed one?
Yeah, it's two separate ones. What you saw is actually the in-law unit, the cottage in the back of Mark and Michelle's house. So each house has a conventional toilet, a plumbed toilet in the main homes, and then that's what you saw is the secondary bathroom. Yes, and to the point around it being unfamiliar to most of us, I strongly advise anybody who sets one up to have very specific instructions. You know, it's very easy to spell out what you're supposed to do, but if you don't spell it out for your new audiences who use your bathroom, you will be dealing with mess. And, you know, that's where patriarchy also gets in the way. You know, guys or people with penises like tend to ignore instructions a lot more often. So you got to really remind them 3 or 4 times on how to use it. Just like friendly, but very important advice.
Good to know.
Yeah, practical stuff.
They were just wondering, any issues with permitting to install a compost toilet like that?
In full transparency, I'm guessing you can't get this permitted unless you went through tremendous hoops. So the toilet is not permitted.
All right. We'll
I mean,
that from the recording. I'm teasing you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm happy to talk about that. I think these are the important edges we all need to explore together. It's like there's a lot of regulations that make tremendous sense, and there are some that are behind at the times. You know, and we have an adage at Movement Generation, which if it's the right thing to do, we have every right to do it. And I'm not trying to be flippant, because as I said, you know, we're very careful with the feces. But you know, if that were a regulatory fight that came to our doorstep, which we don't want, I'm not looking for that. But it's like, you know, it'd be an invitation for the, you know, to engage with our municipality in a practical way. So like, really, should we really be fighting about this when we're facing a tremendous water crisis? Is this really the fight you want to be picking? If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, you know, things like laundry to landscape, you know, you don't have to permit that anymore. And it's somewhat, I don't know if it was you or a previous presenter mentioned that it used to be called, it was Greywater Gorillas, now is Greywater Action.
Exactly.
It's now like legit, you know, and the idea of being, we want to make this simpler and streamlined for you.
Yeah.
But, those of us who work in local government, as I do, it's great to hear from you about what are the barriers to doing it.
Right. Yeah. I'd like to see it as an invitation. This is an invitation to our municipalities to really use sound, safe, public health-based creativity to get us where we need to be. So, you know, as like the first testers in an urban center, it's like, let's do this, and let's do it without like a 5-year study process where we all kind of know what it takes to do it in a safe way, because it's been done in so many localities in a rural context for time millennia. Like the technology is not complicated, right? Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it's important for us to explore the edges.
Well, thank you, Mateo. I really appreciate you showing your home. And I also just loved getting to meet your son, who was extremely charming, and have his involvement as well.
Thank you both for organizing such a necessary and timely conversation year in and year out. I appreciate you a ton.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go. I'm going to have a quick sponsor message, and this is from Bayren. So Bayren is a really great resource. Get started on your own green home upgrades with the Bayren Home Plus program, offered by a collaboration of Bay Area local government agencies, including Stopwaste. Home Plus provides homeowners with educational resources and up to $5,000 in rebates for energy efficiency and electrification upgrades. So visit bayren.org/homeowners to learn more and schedule a no-cost consultation with an expert home energy advisor today. So Rebecca's going to run you through what you're going to see tomorrow if you tune back in.
Yep, I'm back, Amy. All right, so here we are for tomorrow. Well, first of all, thank you for joining us today. I don't know, I learned so much. But a sneak peek about tomorrow's program, there's going to be 6 more homes, and they're all very different and also very special in their own ways. So we're going to see 2 accessory dwelling units, ADUs, that include a straw bale, which is a home that was built using passive house principles, and homes that were remodeled by Block Power, which specializes in electrifying underserved communities with no money down retrofits. And my colleague at the Ecology Center, Danae Shorter, is going to present green home strategies for renters. And energy consultant Tom Cabot is going to present how you can electrify on a 100 amp panel. That came up in one of the presentations today because it's costly to upgrade. And you should have received a login link for tomorrow in the same email that you received one for today. But if you can't find it, just go to the eastbaygreenhome.com and the login information is there.
So if you're fired up and ready to take the next step or just ready to learn more, I want to turn you on to my favorite resources. For one, you can look up details on any of the various homes that you saw today at eastbaygreenhome.com. You can also go check out the 12 homes from last year's tour in the archives. And I especially want to recommend Brady Seal's presentation on the health dangers presented by gas stoves. And you can find that in last year's day 1 of the tour at around an hour and 40 minutes. So at eastbaygreenhome.com/resources, you can find some of my favorite resources like Bayren's Find a Contractor, How to Electrify Guides from Redwood Energy and Rewiring America, Graywater Action, and of course the Switches On website, which we heard about today. And if you haven't visited it before, I want to give a shout out to the Ecology Center store, which is a very cool place to buy items for your garden, kitchen, body care, and kids stuff. The tour today stressed getting fossil fuels out of your home, and I just want to say that plastics are included in that. And the Ecology Center store specializes in alternatives to plastic products. Tell them that you attended the Green Home Tour and get 15% off your purchase. And the Ecology Center has also launched a new lending program where you can borrow an induction cooktop. And Actera also has a lending program for those who don't live close to the Ecology Center in Berkeley. And it's a free and easy way to experiment with induction cooking. Come on, slides. Oops, overshot it. So thank you to everyone who tuned in, the lovely homeowners who let me and now you into their homes, and thank you to our sponsors. I hope that these homes and presentations made you curious and made you start thinking about your own home in new ways. We're going to keep the Q&A open for the next 10 minutes, trying to answer any last-minute questions. So you can keep asking questions for the next 10 minutes. If you've learned something valuable from this event or got inspired, I urge you to donate at eastbaygreenhome.com on the registration page to help support this event. And see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Just roll up in your pajamas with your coffee.